All right. So anyway, how about that Rio crowd, boys? You know, like,
Oh, Jesus. I missed that episode. I didn't get to partake in that fun.
well, we've basically been doing that for the entirety of our lives up to this point. But yes, you did depart. Is that open season for conversation, Jason? How do we feel about this?
Yeah, that's open conversation.
Well, it kind of feeds into a bit of everything right now because
Yeah.
Yanko's fucking tired as anything.
Oh, dude.
Fuck.
At this point in the year, I am entirely reamed out. And I have...
Understandably so.
Yeah, and this last month has been crazy. So yeah, I did just for those the listeners out there, open season on this conversation. 2 weeks of Rio of the Work in the Major broadcast into flying home to start preparing for a wedding. I had 2 days to clean up the house and get ready for a rehearsal dinner and all the errands that go along with that, and then a wedding on Thursday, and then I had about a day and a half, Friday, Saturday, left on Sunday to come back out to Copenhagen for fall finals. And I have a cold. I'm still sick. So if you guys make me laugh, you're going to get like a hacking cough along with it. So I'm going to do my best to mute the microphone.
Oh, okay.
I'm at like
there's
that tail end where the throat is so weak. Casting with Anders, I've been like, no jokes, Anders, on day one. I was like, I can't laugh on broadcast. It won't work.
We're going to save it for the arena days anyway, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's good news here, and obviously there's bad news here to unpack. Obviously the good news, congratulations, Jason. I wasn't there, but congratulations, right?
Thank you.
Oh my God, what is that? That's a motorbike. I don't know if you guys could hear that. And then also commiserations to being sick, because it feels like a lot of people are sick at the moment. I saw some people missing blast because they were sick, like Adela was sick. I think Mod was unwell as well.
I think Rio hit some people pretty hard. I think there was something going around. I've seen a lot of... I know, like, on Media Day here at Blast, I had to do... This was funny as fuck. They asked me to step in on a Media Day panel for, like, a coaching roundtable, like, last minute, because the third coach they had was sick, and he pulled out. And it was me. It was me, Blade, and Robin. So like two major winning coaches.
Okay.
And then they threw me in the middle, and I was like, this is unreasonable, but I'll do it for you.
You get that all ends of the spectrum there, mate. You also get to, be the hosty man. So actually, you probably came in clutch in that regard.
Banks was hosting it, so but it was fun. It was good chat. It was nice. I think I did take a little bit more of like a question asking, like, with the experience, knowing like where to probe and where to ask some questions of obviously the major winning coaches. So it was cool. It went fine. It was just kind of funny. It was like, one of these is not really like the others.
There's a meme for everybody. Someone can work that out at home. They're very good in the photo shops these days. But I got sick after the last major, after Antwerp, and then I missed Dallas. And Yanko, that's when you casted Dallas with Dinko, because I was going to cast Dallas with Dinko.
Bro,
that was such a wild event.
That was crazy how that happened. I mean, basically, we were just at the lobby drinking, and then it was like Tom was there or Phil was there, and it was like, hey, let me cast with Dinko the G2K. And then they said, yeah, that's actually a pretty cool idea. And then the next day it was happening, and we did a skit, and I was like, oh, fuck. I have to actually do this now. But it was cool.
It's
it was fun,
right?
Yeah.
I think you would do. They had the facility up there, so you could do the. We're going back like almost 6 months now. Well, it's not that long ago. But you had the thing so you could do the drawing on the minimap and shit while it was live. I think that feature, right? That's like they do in traditional sports, right? They do that in NFL, like they'll break down a player. And this is me talking from only a guy who watches some highlights. But when I was doing that trio desk with Alex and Henry, that was one of the things that I was just able to focus on there, which was cool. And it meant it was just like live analysis, which people are going to see. It's like bang. Little picture right there. You break something quick down. You give someone. It's a nice little nugget. It's a fun little thing. We got to bring it back. We got to bring it back. I feel my enthusiasm is outweighing both of yours this morning, and I've only slept for 4 hours. I know you're in a bit of a rough spot, Yanko. What's been going on, man?
It is a bit rough. I was at Jason's wedding actually, so I went.
Did you get the cough? Did you give him the cough?
No. I went from Brazil to Michigan, and as I was landing, it was snowing. So it was quite a change of scenery, really. But yeah, that was fun. That was great. Got to see Sue and Robin as well.
I saw that. Yeah, some gamer pics going on.
Yeah, good times were had. And then I visited a friend in New York for a couple of days, but in reality, I should have just went home straight away after the wedding. I was so exhausted from the major. I am still recovering, so
Yeah, it takes time. You jet lagged as well. That's fucked.
We had right when Yanko came to Michigan, we had a winter storm hit. It dumped like 2 feet of snow.
course.
Like it started snowing like the day Yanko arrived, and 2 feet of snow over the course of like the 3 days he was there.
Man,
We also we did a pre-wedding IV drip as well. Have you ever done that, Chad? Have you ever?
I saw that.
Yeah.
It looks aggressive because, like, most people aren't fans
Bro,
of
it
needles.
did
So to go,
nothing
let me
for
put
me.
it. Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how or why or whatever, and just didn't feel much. But I'll say this though, I'd much rather live in Grand Rapids than I would in like a big city or whatever, like
Oh,
New
yeah?
York or yeah. It's actually kind of nice, it's
Nice.
there is like a sense of I don't know.
Community?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's a smaller city, so you get like a decent enough city vibe when you want to go in, and then everything like around the small city is pretty chill and like Midwestern, laid back and slow pace. So it's not as like stressful as like being in a New York. There's not
Yeah,
that constant buzz.
Especially after going to New York straight after that, it's like, man, this is like insane. I don't think I could ever really live in New York. It's just like too much.
Wait, I remember years ago when I went to New York. It was like 2018. Well, we've obviously been a couple of times
Yeah.
but I stayed one year for like a week after. And what is it? Is it Williamsburg? My fucking memory's a bit tanked.
Yeah, that's
I think
Brooklyn.
yeah, like on that side. And I stayed in like a really nice Airbnb stuff in there, and that was cool. But I could only, you wouldn't be there for a long time. I know a lot of people want to live in cities though. It's strange. I guess it just depends. This is the thing. This is how we know we're getting old.
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna
young
say this is
people
an
want
age
to be
thing
in the
too.
city.
Yep.
Yeah, so we just sound like fucking boomers right
No,
now,
but
which
I mean, I don't have much against cities. It just the big cities in the U.S. There's
To
too
live
much.
there as well.
There's too much going on for one, and the second thing is like what you said, Chad. Like the sense of community. You don't really have that. I mean, obviously, probably if you actually went to live somewhere and after you spend some time there, you'd probably figure it out to some extent. But I don't know. It's just weird to me.
It's not a Disneyland vibe. Anyway, fucking hell, what's going on with? That was totally just my audio. You're wearing in-ears right now. Not ideal. Where are we going with this one here? Well, gentlemen,
What's some of the Counter-Strike news that's gone on?
I was gonna say,
What are the
like, a
headlines?
lot has actually happened. A lot has happened because Jason left. We did one with Maui. Thank you again to Maui for standing in.
Bro, Chad, this feels to me like that episode was like a month ago.
Right?
That's
It does feel
feels
like so long ago.
Yeah, it was last week. That's insane.
It's only been like 10 days. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that's insane. It was before the weekend.
But that was cool because we all had late flights, right? So we were able to hang around and do that on the day after the major finish. So the last time, I guess, people would have heard our thoughts on the whole Outsiders situation and heroic game and everything like that. I think the problem is a lot of the conversation around the major wasn't even focused on the Counter-Strike, right? Whether that's from us or from the community, there was just so much going on that the Counter-Strike probably didn't get the shine. And I know, like, on broadcast, one of the things that we were trying to do was, I don't want to say, I'm trying to think of a way to frame this that's, because I could come out and just go, try to, like, spin the positives of the way that Outsiders approach the game, but I think it should be, like, highlight the nuance is probably a better way to frame it, right? Because the detail of what they do and the way that they approach the game, and I know that you and Maniac were highlighting this a lot on the desk, Yanko, was talking about their style. Did we talk about this last time? I can't fucking remember.
Maybe a little bit with Maui.
Yeah, I don't know how much detail we went into this because there was so much conversation. I know we got into the Counter-Strike stuff a bit more towards the end. For a bit of it, we were talking about, like, obviously all the crowd stuff. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Jason, because this is, I suppose, a platform where you can. If you're fucking over it, like, most of us are, then we can just fucking leave it. It's up to you.
I think I had something to say at some point. I was like, I might as well just get my thoughts out on it because I've seen so much of that conversation, and it's varied. It's gone different ways. I don't know. I guess I think I didn't listen to the episode that you guys did with Maui, so I don't know exactly what you guys said.
No, that's fine.
I know, like, for me, I it's hard because I think the Brazilian crowd was like, it was awesome during the Challenger and Legend stage. I'll admit I was relatively disappointed once we got to the arena, and I think there are plenty of external factors that I think can like the context around why that crowd is lit. Like, I don't know what you guys talked about. I know like the outside area was way more popular than the inside the arena, especially for the non-Brazilian games. There was so much going on with signings. I know too, like the part of the issue as well that I think would have negated a lot of this conversation, because visually it made the arena look way more empty than it was, because we know from being in there, like the upper level was full pretty much every single day. And part of that was because, I don't know if you guys brought this up at all, I know the ESL plan for like the Jumbotron, like the screen in the center, was supposed to be way bigger. And when we transitioned from the Legendary stage into the arena actually like changed their mind and said, your plans for the Jumbotron being this size, it's like too heavy to hang. So they had to like decrease the size of the screen, which made it so that lower bowl wasn't a good viewing area. So usually when we have arena events, that lower bowl is the first one to fill up, and it's great for the camera shots, obviously. And this time that wasn't the case. So it looked way more empty on camera than it actually was in real life, which I think is why there's such a big disconnect between the fan perception of the crowd and our perception of the crowd.
So we alluded to that last week. I think like we had heard that, right? And we alluded to it on the show. We didn't flat out come and go at that direct. But
I don't know if I'm speaking out of school on that one, so apologies to you.
I just thought that maybe I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. For me, it doesn't feel like it is, right? Like by saying, hey, I guess if you look at it from their perspective, maybe it's like, how has this happened? We organized this and that gets changed last minute, or maybe it goes deeper than that, right? But regardless, if that is the case, like 100%, and it got changed by the venue on them, and then that affected the seating and how it looked for the lower deck, which then affected all the camera shots, which then, a lot of negative attention because of that. That's one of many things I think that stack up here in like the combination. The problem is, Jason, I'm leaving it in the dust.
Yeah.
Because it's gotten to the point where no matter what I say, right? Or what information I try and provide, it just gets warped, right? Like it's already tainted. People already have the immediate assumption.
Yep.
So it makes it quite difficult for me to even add anything constructive. So I don't know if trying to stay more vague is a good thing for me, or if being in more detail. But regardless, I could go on with a list of things. There's things that were done well. There was things that were done poorly. There was things that were, misconstrued. What do we do?
This is more my perspective, and I get the benefit of having a little bit more time between the event to like reflect and look back on it and kind of organize my thoughts versus you guys doing a podcast the next day and everything. But for me, it's like, here's the information of the context around why the crowd probably wasn't as impressive as we would have liked in the arena, especially or mostly for the non-Brazilian games. And I mean, the fans can take that for what they will. Like, I don't really care about their opinion, because
fair enough.
I think on some level, like, look, if you're a fan, it's like you're not supposed to have to care about those details, like these contextual details. And I think if we could go back and ESL could go back, they would do a lot of things differently with how they organized all the stuff around the major to make sure that the crowd was a little bit more filled out. And that's a learning experience for ESL and for the production. Something like that with the outside viewing area had never really been done before in Counter-Strike, so there was always going to be some lessons learned. But I also don't blame the fans if they want to be upset at the crowd in Brazil, because as a fan, you're not supposed to have to care about those details. Like, you just tune in for the games, you want a good vibe, you want a good environment, and it wasn't there all the time. It also, I mean, it obviously didn't help that so many of the favorite teams and the big name teams and players didn't really make it to the stage, so it didn't go deep into the stage as well.
And that's probably why we didn't have a lot of Counter-Strike conversation, right? Like, because the focus was so on not only what people saw as shortcomings, then the issue was the big name teams weren't even there to make up for it. Right? We didn't even have we weren't on for any of the crazy crescendos, the storylines that were being built. And this is the thing, like, this conversation is about a narrative, being important or not. And look, it's also not only a narrative, it's the big name teams and players that have a lot of fan bases. So when you have those two things combined, you find yourself, if it was any big team that was coming through with some star names, and maybe they weren't one of the favorites to win, right? Then we're going to have a lot more story around the players. Whereas this was talking earlier with mentioning the thing with Yanko about the trying to highlight the style and the nuance of outsiders for everybody. was because that is one of the positives of that team. But it's harder for us as an English broadcast to like break into that side of the world. That's why having Heku's great in some of these interviews. Obviously, they're getting better in English. Like James gave some good little nuggets there. But back to the star team situation, right? Like this is a weird conversation. I don't know. I think I've said conversation 7 times. I don't know how we feel about. I fucking lost my train of thought, boys. No, I've got it back. The partner events, right? The partner teams. Okay, so the partner teams in all of this consideration, we're speaking about ESL and Blast events and how they're more closed off and that these names are constantly there. But if we don't get those names in the finals or semi-finals of a major, then the viewership gets hurt. Obviously, the time of the matches were good because in Brazil we brought them much earlier. So what do we think this is, right? We want open circuit, or do we think we want open circuit? Like what's going on here? I want open circuit for Counter-Strike's value as terms of a game, consideringly sharpening itself like round after round, game after game. Whereas if we have these partner teams, it's probably better entertainment because it's the names everybody wants to see, apparently.
I think too, the partner teams, I mean, again, the partner teams I think are just such an important aspect for the business of Counter-Strike as an esport. I think that kind of partnership between ESL and Blast and the partner teams that they have signed onto them is just an important financial business relationship in an industry that's struggling to find a way to be profitable and struggling to find a way to fund itself.
What is the why here? I'm not pushing from like a negative sense. I'm just trying to ask the question from like an inquisitive standpoint, right? So what we build up there is we're saying that these orgs, these big orgs, G2, Navi, it's not Cloud9, is
Liquid.
it? FaZe, Liquid, right? These really big mega orgs that we have, Astralis, NIP, they want to be part of these leagues with the 2 tournaments, right? So it's like a promotion in a way, right? Now, and there's certain benefits of being part of these things. Some could be revenue share. We've spoken about this before, right? In terms of the deals and the viewership numbers and all that kind of shit. And then the other is, they get the exposure of being in these events. They might get invited to a couple of events. For Blast, obviously, right, you get invited to both group stages. ESL, you get invited to both pro leagues, but it doesn't work like that with all the masters and championship level events, right? You have to qualify through like either winning an event or through the play-ins or a certain amount of points. So like this, but they're 2 different models, and those benefits exist for these partner teams. Now ESL obviously does more. There's a few more events across the year. There's more time to be guaranteed on air. But how are we making money from that? Is it just the eyes on, right? Is that how we're framing this? There's the eyes on that makes this a positive, because how else is this like? It's the sponsors getting eyes on that. That's it, right? That's all it boils down to. Is that how simple it is? I hate that if that's the case.
I think that's how simple it is right now. I think the goal is for it to be built into, having, more than just that. But at the moment, I think that's just kind of where we are to a certain degree. And I'm not super experienced in this realm either. I think rev share is a big part of it. Obviously, being guaranteed.
We make it an expert on about this shit.
Being guaranteed, like if you're your
this.
team, being guaranteed to be at all these big ESL and Blast events and having your brand and your logo and your partner and your sponsors and partner media partner brands like being exposed as well. That's a good guarantee to have if you're chasing down some of these deals. I think it's a lot of cross promotion where you have some of these orgs that have huge followings, especially in other games, that are able to constantly put out content and attention that gives attention to ESL and Blast events to bring more viewers into it. So like a lot of like cross pollination in that sense within the industry. But yeah, it's I think it's just a step for growth. And honestly, I don't think we're in a terrible place in terms of also having elements of an open circuit. I think certainly it could be more open and it could be better. And I mean, I know there's people, in Blast and ESL that still want to pull this into more of an open environment as well. I mean, that's always going to be a constant tug of war. And I think obviously when the majors come around and you see so many of these non-partner teams actually do well and upset, it just continues to lend more credence to having some ability for these non-partner teams to be making it into events.
I kind of just changed the frame. Sorry, Yanko, you go.
No, I mean, but you have opportunities. Look at Heroic and Gambit last year, right? Like, they weren't in either of they weren't a partner team with anyone, but obviously because they were so good, they had enough points to compete in ESL events, and then Blast
Yep.
would be through the showdown or whatnot. I think that's the problem. The harder thing is like you have to go through the showdown if you're not a partner team to get to the like spring or fall finals, right? And that's kind of hard. It's like only 2 spots,
Yeah, there's
right?
not equal opportunities in the competition
But
itself, right?
but when you look at the partner teams or what, you have to go back and look at why did it become a thing, because back in the day we had E-League, ESL, Starladder, Epicenter, Blast maybe just showing up, right? So it was a way for tournament organizers to like secure ESL, let's say, to secure to make sure that they have the best teams at their event, because back then you would have, Astralis kind of started doing it. They would skip an event here and there. They skipped Cologne notoriously in 2017 to prepare more for the PGL major in Krakow, right? So the best, well, they weren't the best team in the world then, but if you miss like one or two great teams at a tournament, all of a sudden we have these asterisks. Yeah, this team won, but
Yeah,
the number
you're
one
right.
or number two weren't there. So that's what they wanted to avoid. They wanted to make sure, as one of you two said, like viewership as well, right? Like you have the good teams there, you get more viewers, you have more stats for sponsors that you can show them and whatnot. So I think we talked about this maybe
So
like an X amount of episodes ago, where it's like because it's only ESL and Blast now, it's like you don't really kind of need to have partner teams. Obviously, we're way beyond that point, right? Like deals in place and whatnot, but just looking at the ecosystem now, it's completely different.
So let me ask you this question, Yanko. How much blame as part of this, right? Because the closed circuit, a lot of people don't like it, right? At least that's a sentiment that you can read online. So how much, because the people that get condemned here are the ESL and Blast of the world. However, these big team orgs, right? The G2s, everyone we just listed before, they have to make a choice to be part of this. It's not like they're like, oh no, you're in our league now, right? It's like
Yeah.
you have to sign a deal. You have to agree to all of the bits and bobs that come along with being in these partnered leagues. But the ones who get framed as the bad guy, the ones that like insulating from this are the TOs. Like Blast and ESL take the bullets for the ones being, called like closed circuits or franchise stuff. But the teams are opting into this. And maybe at the detriment of their team, like their literal team, because it means that their schedule, they have to play in all these different events. And if we actually look at a lot of the partner teams, most of them have like tried 6-man rosters, and they've had like these really like flexible lineups because they haven't been able to make a lot of the decisions that they probably would like to make in like a traditional Counter-Strike team's time frame. Like for example, I know that there's a bit of issue with outsiders because of the VP situation, like buy players or whatever, but I would imagine a team like that can pivot easier and quicker on who's available to them on like a big name team, because this is something. When I flew back, right, I flew back next to Mr. Jonas Gunderson, which was a fun flight. We had a good chat. Had a discussion about some of our interactions in the past, and I got a bit of perspective as well from like a team position, right, on some of the decisions. And I was asking him a lot of questions. And he was pretty open with information. It's not stuff that I'm just going to fucking come and share, but it has helped frame a different perspective. And sympathizing a little with these teams, because when all the NIP changes were going on, I'm moving away from the franchising stuff. I have so much fun stuff. I'll save it. Let's get back to the franchising shit, because this is deep too. How much blame do the big orgs take, Yanko? Should we put blame on them?
No, man. I mean, it just makes sense for the parties involved, right? Like for the TO, they want to have good teams so they can secure like viewership and whatnot. And for the teams, it's also, now that you're a partner, you are, I mean, guaranteed to participate at a bunch of these events that you would want to be at regardless, right? Like, whatever, Cologne, Katowice, wherever the IEMs are outside of it, like those are the tournaments you want to attend. So I don't think there's anyone to blame. It just made sense for everyone involved, and I don't see why that's a problem. Like these TOs, they need to find a way to make money, be more profitable, right? Like have more income. So the way they figure it out, that's okay. They don't owe it like, like ESL's making a tournament or Blast is, and they have to make it open so that anyone could qualify. It's like, why? No, like they're running a business and they can decide the way they want to run their business. Obviously, with Valve and whatnot, you couldn't really create a completely closed system because they would object and whatnot. But I think the way it is now, they found like a sweet spot.
Yeah, they're letting them experiment, right? That's what I see that's going on here. Like Valve are disruptive when like everything feels like, especially at this high end level, gets run past Valve to make sure that they're okay with it. Because can't Valve just be like, yo, you can't run Counter-Strike events anymore? Like it's pretty easy. Don't they have to give out a license to run CS events?
Yeah, but they're pretty. They've always been very open about just giving that license out. I think it would take something very extreme for them to actually take the license away. The Counter-Strike
like trying to have a complete closed circuit situation, right?
I mean, and compared to other games, Counter-Strike's always been easier to run events. Like I know, some of the fees you hear for certain other games, if third parties want to run it, like just to get a license has to be X number of teams, has to be X number of dollars to the developer to get a license to run an event, and that's kind of why you see some other games not have as many third-party stuff because the developer wants to be more in control and requires a lot more. Valve's always been just like, yep, you run a Counter-Strike event, we don't care. It's like pretty much, I don't know. I don't even know if I wanted to run an event tomorrow, I don't even think I would have to reach out to Valve necessarily. You could just run the event, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think at the level we're talking about, right? But it's always been an interesting one for me. Like we go down that rabbit hole and then we get to the point where, okay, so everybody agreed, right? The teams and the tournament organizers gave a proposal to the teams, and then everyone signed it, and they're like, okay, now we're going to run a league, and then they're going to run different formats of the league, and like we know that ESL has that commission right over there. It's the Louvre agreement, right? So the team's over in that whole conversation, and they talk about the way that the formats are and everything, and obviously everybody as part of that wants to produce the best event. And then we go further down the line here. We're talking about these ambiguous ways of making money. And then the events don't run like super smoothly or there's issues. But the contribution from the lowest party, which is the viewer, is their time, right? We live in a generation where time is the biggest currency with social media, right? For younger people, it's them on TikTok or on Instagram or fucking on Twitter or whatever. There's a whole lot of this, right? And that's where we whack the advertising in front of their face. So when we boil it all down to that right there, is the product that we're offering, right, too high quality or not high quality enough for what's being contributed by the viewer, right? Because you think about a lot of the content I just listed, like TikTok and Instagram and everything. Yeah. Like all of that's really quick form content, right? I'm not saying it isn't well produced. There's a lot of it that is. It's very funny. It's well thought out. But like people pay for a Netflix subscription, right? People pay for fucking Prime Video. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you just have Amazon. Then you have Prime Video. Or I could list 100 things. I have fucking Spotify I pay for. I have Disney Plus that I have. But I can watch shit for free on YouTube. I can go and watch Counter-Strike for free on Twitch. But Twitch, what happens on Twitch is if you're an individual streamer, you get directly rewarded with subscribers, right, and donations directly to you. And so we're dealing with massive companies running these events, right? And then you see some stuff that starts to pop up. I'm not saying that, I don't like events with tech issues. It makes my day fucking longer. I want to watch the game. When I had to wait like an hour, like a day or two ago, and then another hour again yesterday watching the Blast games, I was like, man, what am I doing with that time? Like I'm walking around the house looking at my fucking shoes.
Anders and I were cracking up because there's something so fucking unique and special about Counter-Strike that like it always just makes your day long. We were just laughing on, I think it was Wednesday when the first games happened, and there was like a couple tech delays and everything and blah blah blah, but I think it took us 8.5 hours to do 2 best of 3s. Like we got
yeah, it was a really long day for you guys.
Yeah, call time was like 8:30, and we got out at 5. We left the arena at 5 for 2 best of 3s, and like the phase series was like a 2-0 that was like 16 to double digits. It was like 16-3, 16-8. It was like a super quick series, and the day still took 8.5 hours for just 2 series. So,
I just want to make sure I get this out there, Jason, so people don't think I've become some entitled fucking internet presenter.
Yeah.
Because I said it was a long day for you guys. We're mainly more alluding to like the staff and the production and shit. Because like, sure, you guys go there for 10 hours, whatever.
Yeah, but
was it the same production crew the whole day?
As far as I know, yeah.
Or they split it up.
I don't think they split it up. Yeah, I mean, when we complain about 8.5 hour days, but production is there for I think like 16, 17, and certainly with those kinds of tech issues, the IT team I think was there until like 2 or 3 in the morning to try and make sure it wasn't going to happen the next day. So, yeah, there's a lot of people around that have way longer days.
Is that event culture though? I remember when I used to like work events, right? I would either sell merchandise at like festivals or theaters or whatever, and they're like short stint things. Like maybe you do like 3 days, and because it's just like fucking nonstop. Like festival starts at 10 a.m. and you're there until people stop buying fucking t-shirts, and then you get as much sleep as you can, and then you're awake and you go, and then you get to Sunday and the whole show ends, and everyone's packing down, and you're fucking counting out the t-shirts and trying to balance the till, and you're loading up the trucks and everything, and you finish at 4 a.m. and you go home and you get to pass out for the rest of the week, right, until the next event on the weekend. Is that just event like lifestyle? It has to be a bit of that, right?
Yeah, I think certainly that plays into it as well. I think also, I mean, it's esports culture, and like as we're talking about, TOs having to find ways to make money. Man, I bet every TO in the world would love to have the luxury of being able to hire 2 separate production crews to handle a 16-hour day. Like they would absolutely fucking love it, but it's just not feasible at the moment.
That's why I'm asking if our model's fucked. Is that why we need like pay-per-view to get the money to get more quality events?
4 best of 3s a day. Like I thought we were.
Oh yeah.
We were past that.
Yep, that too.
And they also put 3 hours between the series, which is optimistic kinda. But they got away with it. Like they were a little bit lucky with how the games went, right? Like otherwise, it's not even you just one series goes into 3 maps, right? Like all of a sudden that pushes everything like back, and it becomes like insane to deal with.
One delay, it's like a domino effect. Everything else just gets pushed back. But I mean, I think to talk to some of your other points, I don't think pay-per-view is the way to go.
No, me either. But I'm just trying to throw shit out there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe down the road, I guess. I think one of the big areas where I think there can be the most improvement is obviously the live production is one thing. There's going to be a certain standard for how you do your live production, but most TOs, well, pretty much every TO at the moment, hasn't really found a way to prioritize, like the focus in their product and their content is the tournament and the games, and there's so many other content ideas available for various social medias, YouTube, which isn't really prioritized by ESL or Blast, your TikTok channels, your Twitter channels, and it's like
we're trying to be good at everything, bro. That's so fucking hard, man.
And I mean, in today's environment, I mean, look at all like the big streamers.
Right.
They have like 8 different platforms they're releasing different kind of content on, and different formats of the same content onto TikTok. It's a little bit more choppy, and YouTube a little bit more of a compilation and edits of like the long form content they do for their live stream. So they're finding ways to take that content.
Excuses, Jason.
Yeah.
What about this tug of war? I fucking love a good excuse. I'm gonna keep throwing them out there.
Get out there.
So then, what you're talking about, right? You're bang on, right? As many different streams where you could potentially find value and revenue is what we're looking for here. Because what we're doing is we're offering a product up for essentially free. All we need is your time, and you watch the occasional ad. Right? You maybe in certain tournaments you watch only get to watch on certain platforms, and in certain tournaments you only get to watch certain type of teams. But if you want to watch their stuff, there you go, it's available. What you're saying is you want to advertise that concept across as many different avenue streams for free, right? But then the people running the fucking media day, they get fucked because that's the TO, because the teams want to do their own content. So how much time are they going to give you when they're creating a fucking documentary or they're doing short form social media content? What are we doing now? Like, I know that has to happen for the teams as well as the TO, but now we have that tug of war happening too.
I think philosophically there has to be like an acceptance that that's just the way things are, and I don't think that should be a bad, like that shouldn't, in my mind, that's like one of the benefits of having these partner teams and these Louvre agreements is where, yeah, if you want to be making content like in our media day, like you're a partner team and your content is going to be bringing eyeballs to our product, like you should view that as a benefit, right? It's like the rising tide raises all boats, or whatever the fuck that saying is, if ever. And I think the next evolution is going to be a little bit more coordination between the TOs and these partner teams. For me, when I look at it, I'm like, man, I would love to be in a position where if I was like involved in the content side of things for like an ESL or a Blast, I'd be having a meeting, every 3 or 4 months with the head content of a Team Liquid or of a G2 or
see what's going
and say,
on. Get some
hey,
ideas.
Which player are you guys really trying to build their brand? Like, whose story are you trying to build? Who are you trying to get in the limelight? Who's important to you on this team for the next 3 years that you're going to hold on to, that you really want us to assist and help you build up, because we have a platform that we can use to help your players become more valuable to you. And I don't think the relationships have gotten to that point quite yet. But that seems, I mean, again, that seems like just a simple way to take a step forward, is just to coordinate with your team so that you guys are kind of focusing on building content that is targeted at the same thing. I'll tell you what, though. I mean, you also had a question earlier if like our product is just like too high quality. I think there's certainly an element of that. I know, like, there's a couple times I've done podcasts or content with like a player during a media day, and we'll do like a one-on-one sit down, like a similar kind of podcast to like this, where you're just having like a 30 or 40 minute conversation with a player, and that piece of content has been produced with. There's a producer involved. There's like 2 camera operators. There's a sound guy, and there's like a lighting guy, and there's like 5 or 6 production staff around like a 30 or 40 minute conversation, when in our space, like, do the viewers really need something that high produced when they're used to just watching someone on a webcam talk on a stream? Like, that seems like a lot of effort to just create like a 30 minute conversation, and a lot of the budget that could go towards a profit or a sponsor is going towards paying these staff members to be there. And I think there's cheaper ways to create higher content than what we're kind of doing. And I think, this is, I think, sort of the problem that most companies, like, I mean, even if you go back to like E-League and Turner, which had such a high bar in terms of production coming from American television, probably spending too much money creating content for an audience that didn't really require that high of a production value to enjoy the content. So much of content in this space seems personality driven, that it doesn't need all the bells and whistles that production companies at this scale kind of require of themselves. That's not to say that we need to have like low quality stuff or drop it out entirely, but I mean, we can make compelling content without having, a beautiful lighting system in the background. Like, it's cool to look at. I just don't know if the value's there.
No, I know what you're saying, but I think like the stuff that we do is like very high quality, right? And esports, because there's so many events, it's constantly pushing that bar, and you're having to come up with new ideas all the time, because once you have something going for a little while, people get complacent in the viewing experience quite quickly, especially like the people who are watching all the time, right? Like, I remember when Rush and I had all the Danger Zone videos, people started to get fed up with them because, well, ESL was overplaying them at one point, right? But also, like, it's, okay, we've seen this enough times now. Like, we know what this is. We get the shtick. It's not funny anymore. It's the same stuff, right? And you could see that the people get fed up with that. And the same thing happened with the surfing videos and whatnot. So these little content series and everything that you can do, and this is to go on when it's a fucking ad break and people are meant to be getting Twitch ads anyway, but the people who aren't are people who pay for the privilege or have ad block. So it's like, anyway, we're filling time that would traditionally be in traditional TV ads. But this is the thing with what I'm coming back to, is all these different ways to make money and revenue streams, because you're not guaranteed anything here. Like, the whole point, ads in broadcast, ads embedded, sales of jerseys, sales of merchandise, sales of tickets, like all of these things, we're at a point where we have scaled, I think, in terms of what we're offering far past where we're at in terms of like our viewership size to sustain what we're offering. Like, how are we meant to keep this high level shit all the time? We're just fucking burning money.
Well, this is a problem that goes back to like the old year of 2016, like the massive explosion in Counter-Strike that occurred like end of 2015 going into 2016, when Counter-Strike just kind of blew up on the map. Like, I've talked about it, I've mentioned it over the years in interviews, but like you skip a lot of steps when you go from just kind of being like this cool new esport that's popping up as Counter-Strike kind of grew, and then immediately into, okay, now these companies that are getting like, double-digit millions of dollars of investment injection, salaries like rose like 300% over the course of a year, and like you just skipped all the steps that usually, I would imagine in a traditional business, you kind of build up to that moment. But we skipped that building phase because all the excitement and investing in esports and gaming in the industry at that time. And it feels like now we have to take like 3 or 4 steps back in some areas and start building those foundations back up that we got to kind of bypass at the time due to inflection of cash.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, there's so much shit.
I mean, this conversation could go on forever, and obviously we have some Counter-Strike stuff to get to. But I mean, even when you talk about advertising during the break screens and everything, I think too in esports versus like streamer culture, I think esports does a really bad job of integrating partners. I think the ads that are being run are very. It feels like very early 2000s, like traditional sports ad styles. Like we're not doing a good job.
Yeah, we have to advertise differently.
Like we have to be able to provide more value to our partners. And some of the sponsored ads that come out on stream sometimes, I'm just like, this is, I don't know. It's just not like a compelling ad to watch. It's not like content these days has to be really interactive with the audience. It feels like, and I think the sponsored content especially, I think is, I don't want to say like lazy, but it's just not like up to the current style of content that people are tuning into. And I think that's an area that has to change as well. And again, it's going to be, we always talk about this too. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And these are things that, as people like us who have experience in the industry, start stepping into other roles as well. And not just talent, but anyone in the industry who has experience. I think you're going to start seeing more of those ideas come in and more content that's a little bit more tailor-made to the audience that we have these days.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think it's also like, man, at the end of the day, it's just about how many people are going to watch the games, right? Like,
True.
that's the most important thing. But the content is there for what? Like, when you do have someone who tunes in and they kind of understand, FPS, it's an FPS, so it's easy kind of to get into, and maybe, they're intrigued now, and if they go to YouTube and they just watch Navi and they type Navi, Counter-Strike, whatever, that's where you have, like, whatever. ESL did a long piece about Simple, best player in the world, whatnot. Like, the content is more there, like, on the side to draw people in, right? Like, I feel... How many people actually like watch the broadcast, like in the break, like the content in the 14-minute thing, like whatever we have, whether it's surf or a fucking amazing interview or a player profile. It's like when people know there's 40 minutes until the next game, they're gonna either turn off the stream or keep it on, but look at something else, watch an episode of their TV show or whatever, So I think for me, content is there mostly like complementary to the games and whatnot, right? And do you guys hear this?
Yeah. Someone drilling.
Oh god, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's
Well,
okay.
it's
This is my consistent
someone's
experience.
Regulating something, so that's great. But yeah,
I think it adds a bit of ambience.
And I think that we should just do content like that will be able to do that, like keep people interested. Doesn't all have to be serious storytelling. Like, obviously you have different types of viewers. Not everything should be tailored for new people. Like, you should have something for
Hardcore fans.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, but I think obviously we're still in our infancy, as an industry, and especially the esport side of things and Counter-Strike too, right? So it's just about growing things and trying to figure out the level of interest and how to monetize it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great argument too for some emphasis on. I mean, I agree with you entirely, and I think even the TOs, that's an argument that we hear constantly. Is like, look, we'd love to do more content, we'd love to have these ideas, but like, we have the stats of what the viewership is like when a game is on, and then between games when the desk is on or when content is playing, and the amount of eyeballs on the stream drops and then returns for the next game. And I mean, over the course of a 12, 14, 15 hour broadcast of 3-4 best of threes a day, I think that just kind of is another argument for like having some focus on the extra like on demand content on YouTube, on other channels, because that's where you can put things where maybe there's not a tournament going on for 4 days and someone really wants to watch some Navi content or some Liquid content or some Outsiders content, and they have it on YouTube and they have those stories. And that's where I think you can really get players in front of the screen more and show some personality, because that connection with the players themselves is what's ultimately going to drive viewers to watch the game. You get someone interested in James and in his story, and all of a sudden this guy out of nowhere who turns out to be like a tactical Counter-Strike genius, and people are going to want to watch James games moving forward. And obviously, pumping up the angle that he likes to masturbate before games, people are going to feel connected to that. Everyone likes a good jerk off before a game.
Well, there's different theories, Jason. Some people, they think you should need to keep the testosterone inside. James' method makes sense for how calm he looks and the amount of comebacks they're able to pull off, right? So there's definitely seems to be a merit to the major winner. Yanko, are they like in your room? Are they like fucking right
No,
next to you?
I don't know.
They're getting closer.
It's probably above me or something.
It's the worst thing. Man.
I can mute it.
Just go push
No,
to talk.
I was more thinking, like, I'm slightly concerned about the listener at home, but more concerned about you, because I get this all the time, right? Like, the other night, I've been going to bed late. I've been putting in some hardcore gamer hours.
Some Anubis hours?
Yeah, I've been wanting to get a bit more of the runtime. So who's around at those hours? It's the Goonies. It's Harry and Hugo, right? So we're deep in the fucking matchmaking trenches. We're out there like playing Anubis, and it's actually, this is the thing. I know a lot of people, like the pros, you get some ridiculous fucking comments, mate. Man, what the fuck?
What you hear?
Yeah.
But I
Hear it
muted
all, baby.
myself on Audacity, but you guys hear me on TeamSpeak.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe I fucking keep it muted on Audacity.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
It's
It's
just
fun.
it's a fun little game that we can play. One of my favorite quotes about this Anubis. We're probably fuck it. We'll pivot. Do you want
Yeah,
to
let's pivot.
Do we
We've
wanna
put
cap
enough
off?
time on the business talk. Let's get.
I
into
could
the
talk about
Counter-Strike
that until
stuff.
the
I know.
fucking
We
cows
all-
come
we all
home,
could.
mate.
That's our
Yeah.
go-to.
So this is we have like a nice little collection of quotes here, guys. If you use on TeamSpeak right now, go up from streaming channel, go to A2, the channel above us, and then you look at like in the description. So this is the one I'm talking about here. Now, obviously, you should probably go look at the whole interview, but it's with Hooksy about Anubis, and it's the second quote down on our list here. It says, "I don't understand why they would add Anubis, even though I haven't played it." Like this is like we have some good ones here. Another one that we have. What else we got here? This is a good one. This is one from Reddit that we liked. I personally think player skins is an abomination. I want to expect what to look for when I play. I have no problem with weapon skins or gloves, etc. But to change the whole appearance on targets only makes the game worse. There's some really fun stuff that we've collected over the years. But the Anubis one is so funny to me, right? Like I understand and this is the thing, from a pro player perspective, you have 7 maps to play and practice and work out how you're going to use your pieces of the puzzle. So for an in-game leader and for a coach and the analysts, okay, they're obviously looking at the broader, what's the approach to the map to be, what are the strengths that we have, where can we put them, and how can then we apply the trade in the server. For the players, it's like, I need to get used to these angles, these fights, these timings, these nades, everything like that, right? So there's different like kind of standpoints and viewpoints of what a new map means in the pool. But a new map, to me, and I talk about this so many times, I feel like I'm just this preacher. I'm just standing there in the front of the God of the Counter-Strike church, and I'm just fucking trying to preach to the people and say that the creativity of Counter-Strike in a new map is one of the best things about Counter-Strike. Everybody has these same fucking tools that you now get to apply on a new battlefield and work out, right? If you spend more time, then obviously you're going to know the map better, right? But how creative can you be? That's something too. And this is what the map's going to offer. And we get to point that out, right? We get to be the narrators and the people to break down these plays on a new map, which is fucking sick, man. Like this for me, as long as the map doesn't play like dog shit, which from my experiences, I think it's going to play quite nicely. It's got a lot of nuance to it, a lot of cool detail with utility that's available. There's obviously some clipping on the map is fucked. There's some wallbangs on the map that are fucked. There's details that need to be fixed. But in terms of the map, I think it could be fun.
I haven't played it yet. As I've been a little bit busy, I'm gonna plan on doing that over the Christmas break. But I know from just looking at the map overview and seeing like some short clips here and there, it feels like it's going to have to get simplified. It feels like it's actually a relatively complicated map in certain areas. I don't know if that's how it plays to you when you're in it, but it feels like it reminds me of like, you remember like the original Cobblestone that came out, like the drop area that had like so many different like passages you could go to, so many different turns you could make, and it felt like a little disorganized. That's what Anubis looks like when I look at like the map layout on like Google or something like that.
So I think like
it feels
the
like
first
certain
thing,
bomb
right?
sites have like have at least like 1 to 2 unnecessary passageways to it. It's almost like there's like 2 or 3 different mids that split off into 3 different hallways.
I think the dynamic of the map, right? The way that it gets like immediately as you can run out of spawn with timings and head-to-head fights without any utility, maybe that gives you that impression. But I think that the thing is, it's going to be difficult in this map for the CTs to stay aggressive, which means they're going to have to play more like passive lines, which will then make the map feel a bit more like in a traditional sense. Like
Okay.
I've been playing a bit of it, and obviously this is just matchmaking shit, right? But you can see what type of peaks that people are getting away with. And I spent some time yesterday. This is like, I want to try and make that map, because a lot of people might be playing it in Face It right now, but there's no defined meta. So you may as well play the map anywhere and try out just like real basic concepts and shit, which is at least my thought process. So I'm doing some basic utility on the fucking map, just working out timings, right? Using refrag to go and spawn and like record bots running at each other to check the timings of who's going to get there when from freeze time. I know Mytha was doing a lot of work on this, and once you get like those initial details, it starts to like settle in of how you think that the map might play in a default, right, on the T side, or what the default setup might be on the CT side, and it doesn't actually feel that bad, that jarring. Like there's a couple of initial fights that you can take that are quite early that are exciting, right? So in the B bomb site, you've got like B long or B main, and then you have like an underpass position that goes down towards canals. So many things are called connector on this map. I think that's half the problem. And so many things are called fucking pillar. Like people need to have a few more creative maids. I made a tweet about this last night. It was very unspecific, but it's for this map, right?
I saw
think
that tweet.
There's too many people. Like everything can't be fucking connector. And if you look around the map, there's some details. Like on the map, you in the B site at the back, there's an area, and you go in there, and there's a sign that says Temple of Anubis. So that's going to be fucking temple, right? There you go, bang, done. Like we use very simple things. There's a lot of platforms in the map, right? So some of them are going to have different names. So I was looking over towards the A-bomb site. As you come into the A-bomb site, one of the positions the CTs can stand in one of the early fights, you kind of you're elevated behind a pillar, but I can't call fucking 7 things on the map pillar. So what's around? Well, there's these 2 massive fountains on the wall. So, okay, that type of position, you could call it fountain. But anyway, I'm moving a bit away from the meta, more about the discussion of position names. Regardless, like the timings and the way the map can play, I think it can be fun. I think it like can be a map with some risk versus reward. There's going to be some cool utility. I think it can be a fun map. Like I said, once they fix a lot of the clipping, because it's fucking dog shit.
I know.
And there's infinity mollies as well.
There's also some players that have expressed that they like the map. I know like Simple and Blade both like the map from Navi.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's nice. Like that, and that's the thing. Like I just think that this always happens, but we're moving.
It's change. It's hard to like new things right out of the gate.
It doesn't feel like it's as aggressive anymore, right? Like some people are actually like, yeah, this is okay, right? Because some people maybe not so much, but it used to be much worse. Whenever there was any change, everything was just, this is shit. Why have we changed anything? I saw like Yanko, you were tweeting about why haven't we had like a cobble or a train or something like that back in the pool. I'm curious with that angle, like why do you want to return to those old battlegrounds?
I mean, some of it is nostalgia. I was gonna mention that, but you know, Train. I love Train as a map, right? Like, I feel like it can come back. Maybe now that we have Anubis, but next map change, I feel like we can bring back Train. But yeah, I think just for teams, it's like you have to learn this map out of nowhere, and it's always this weird thing, especially if you're like a really good team already. Then you're like, how do we approach this? Like, do we put effort into this map so that people don't use it to punish us? Like, we don't want to use it as a permaban. We can have something else like a vertical or an overpass as a permaban now. But then it's like, well, it's kind of gimmicky. It's gonna take like months for the meta to be established, and there's probably gonna be updates to the map. So do we really want to spend time on this instead of ironing out our nuke or our whatever Inferno, whatever it is. So I think it's just that the map is completely new. You remember when Ancient came in, it was IEM Summer, I think, the first tournament, and then Madden had like 40 kills every Ancient, because on a new map people don't really know the angles and the shoulder peaks, right? So it's mostly, if you're CT side, you're a player who has good spray control, like you're gonna own people in a way. So I'm not against it. I'm fine with it. I said Tuscan. To be honest, I think Tuscan would be shit in CS:GO. I don't know. I don't think it would play that well, right? But I loved Tuscan in 1.6. So
can I just offer up some context here, boys, on the map Anubis? And I understand what you're saying, Yanko. Like it's new to the pro map pool, right? But Anubis has been in the game before as a community map. And there's something else I want to talk about off the top. I know what you're saying. But the map has undergone.
You think pro players play that?
No, I don't. But that's where I think maybe therein lies a little bit of the issue, right? Because the map has had a lot of changes, and like this map has been around since I think like early 2020, something like that. And the map has had significant changes. So I know what you're saying about thinking, okay, the map might get a lot of changes now that there's pros playing it. I think a lot of things have already been fleshed out. The stuff I'm talking about with clipping is maybe stuff that people saw on Reddit where textures haven't been like cut down, and when you try and throw a nade, it hits a corner that is visibly not there. The window's over towards A. They feel like they're a little bit off. I'm hitting the corner when the grenade is clearly not hitting the corner of the window. But my point here is that the map has received significant updates. I know it hasn't been played by the best players in the world, but it's been played in like map core on Faceit, I believe. It's been in the game before as like
it's been play tested to a certain extent.
What I think would be cool. Sorry, were you done or no?
Yeah. I just wanted to add that context so that people know that it's had a little bit of playtime.
I think it would be cool, like that we have a sort of like a layout for this sort of a thing, like for changing the maps and whatnot.
Like a blueprint going
yeah,
forward.
yeah, sort of a
Okay,
blueprint
yeah.
going forward, so that let's say like out of the pool of these five maps at the very least, like these are the five maps. One or two of them are gonna be changed
Yeah.
in the pool, like in a way that people can get familiar with them, like they could play them, or let's say you have a. I think we talked about this on some episode where it would be cool to have seasons for maps. Like let's say you have legacy maps, like you say you have.
Cobble or that train.
No, you have Dust 2, Inferno. I guess you put
Okay.
Mirage in there, Nuke,
Yeah.
and you add one more in there.
Oh, ones that will stay
And-
consistently.
So like every
Or-
year, two
yeah.
maps change in the pool or something like that.
Yeah, or every season, like there's two maps that change. There's four maps or five, whatever, that are always in the pool, and then there's two that you swap. So let's say this season we have Overpass Vertigo. Next season we have Ancient and Anubis. Next season we have Cobble and Train. Right, whatever. Like it can be new maps that are added, but
Sure.
there's always, and those maps that are being changed, that's a pool of, let's say, 6 maps, 4 maps, 8 maps, whatever. And the rotation is known for this season and the next. That's known right now, and then it's announced like one season ahead. What's going to be in the next season, which maps are going to be played.
I think I think having that kind of a blueprint could be cool, and then it might factor into the actual game. I know that the pros aren't playing in the client, right? But it could factor in where those maps end up as like the eighth and ninth maps in that season, but people can still practice them if they want,
Yeah.
right?
And it's also not necessarily when the players are probably not going to play them. Maybe a little bit they play with their friends or whatever. They want to fuck around. They maybe choose to play those maps just so
Yeah.
that they get a feel for them. But it will be a thing where your analyst, like, you can give him some work ahead of time, right, to look into some stuff and kind of come up with maybe some things, right, basically. So
What do you think about this, though? Okay, so that's from like a pro team standpoint. What do you think about this as far as the relation of Valve and map makers go, right? Because I was under the impression that it was going to seem pretty unlikely that they would get a independent individual, right? Or maybe it was a group of people who made Anubis. I'm not sure how many people were involved in it. But this is a community map, right? This is a map that has been built by the community, and that was common in Counter-Strike back in the days, right? But then Valve obviously introduced things like Cobble and Overpass. Now Overpass was new. Cobble was an old map, but they turned it into a version for CS:GO, but it was theirs. And you look at Anubis now, and the thing is, this is the strange part to me that I didn't think would happen again after the Cash situation, right? I think Cash, I don't know how Volcano and FM
shit, I
Pwn,
like Cash.
I don't know how they got money, right, for having that in the map pool. I'm not sure exactly how that worked back in the day. But with this map today, Valve have bought it. Like Valve own Anubis, right? They're not leasing it off of the the guys who made it. They own it. And then there's obviously no figure given to that. And I was trying to speculate what it could be, because when we did the Dreams and Nightmares case earlier in the year, I think each person who got artwork in that case, maybe it was last year, whenever the Vacuum case was, got $100,000 for, that was it, a flat rate. It wasn't like the amount of the cases they get opened or from the keys or whatever. It was, you get $100,000. So I wonder if this thing with the map would be the same situation. And it is cool as well that the community can influence with maps like this, and more initiatives like what you're talking about. Maybe that could help get these maps more front and center, tested by some pros. It would be nice to have. I know it's just like shits and giggles, but there's pros who still, they're still at home during the player break. Maybe they want to play in a fun tournament. You could ask, even if it's like tier 2, tier 3, we're still getting some people out there who maybe want to have a bit of fun on these. Anyway, I just was curious with that. What did you guys think about the idea that Valve have bought that map? Does that mean anything to you guys, or
no? I
really?
think it's great. Obviously too, because I think it takes. It's probably something Valve would much prefer doing rather than hiring someone to dedicated build maps. And I think maps.
Well, now they have to fix it. That's the scary part.
Yeah, but I think they did it. I think they did a good job with Vertigo. I think they did a good job with Overpass. I think they did a good job with Cobble back in the day. It just takes time to get there with their style, right? It took like about, I think, Cobble and Overpass probably took like a year to get to a good place competitively. I think Vertigo is quicker. It probably took I don't remember exactly, but maybe like 5-6 months for the changes to Vertigo to really make it a more exciting map competitively.
There's a lot of people who don't love Vertigo. I like it, but I know a lot of people don't.
It's way too long. to be fair for the competitive scene, but we also know to a certain extent, the competitive professional scene isn't necessarily the priority of Valve, which is always the sticky point. But I don't know. I've gotten to the point in my life where I think Valve has done a good job long term balancing maps and balancing the game, even if sometimes it's painful to wait. So I don't really.
Well,
feel
what
like
about
criticizing
the
Valve
fact
too
that the
much.
last map that was added was Ancient, also a new map out of nowhere, right? Maybe,
And that was actually
may,
Ancient was much closer to like play ready when it came
Yeah,
yeah,
out
Ancient's
versus the
yeah.
other
had
maps.
very
Yeah.
few changes, but Ancient was also in the. It was also I could play it with Henry and Alex. We played it a lot before I got introduced to the map pool, like in competitive map pool, right? So I think that they already had a lot of data, and then when that was confirmed by more pro level play, like the temple situation over towards A, and they removed those those boxes definitely came with pro play. Some of the wall bangs were adjusted. Like in the early days, you couldn't wall bang through that the thing over towards B.
To address your question a little bit more directly, I think it's awesome that Valve has taken this from a community map, and I wish if this is something they're going to do going forward, I wish they would announce that and give an incentive for the map making community to be more focused on maps that can be integrated into the professional competitive map pool rotation, so that we actually get people focusing on trying to build new maps specifically to be put into the competitive, and actually make that like a point of contest between map makers, so that we can have new maps. Like if they came out and said, you know what, every single year we're going to add one community map to the rotation, I think you'd get a lot of more map makers actually attempting to build maps that can be thrown in to get that benefit, that recognition added to the resume. Obviously the money's nice as well, whatever it is that Valve pays for the map, but that could be huge if Valve was going to do something like that. I think the other option too, I mean, this is not biased, of course, but I've always liked. I had the idea that which I've always thought is a smart idea. I don't know if everyone has, but if you're every year, instead of having to go through the painful process of introducing a brand new map, if that's going to be too much of a toil and take too long, why not just like keep the bones of the map? Like if you take an Inferno and change the layouts of the bomb sites.
I think it's a good thing from a competitive standpoint because it forces them to change the way that they do the jigsaw puzzle of executes or the angles that they hold and stuff. So
it can
keeps
make wrapping on the bomb site stronger than going up lane. It can change the emphasis. It can change styles of execute. Yeah, I mean, it does a lot of cool things. It probably isn't great for the average player, like the matchmaking player.
That's where I'm curious. That's where I'm thinking. Like for the pro level and with the amount of hours we put in, it's cool because it forces you to change your nuanced decisions, right? Like, but the broader approach to the map is still going to be somewhat similar. But I don't know how this would work from a casual standpoint and what they would think of that.
I wouldn't do that. I think it would get too confusing. Like, I think it's just better to change.
Like playing inverted maps.
Well, yeah, I think I think it's just better to change maps, like which maps are being played, rather than making changes on the map itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like there can always be a bunch of different like angles on this type of thing, and this is the problem. Like we're looking at it always from an esports perspective, whereas Valve are looking at it from what their data tells them about their player base, right? So they're not looking at it from the esports perspective. Well, we always have that take. That's the lens we're always looking at things through. So it's a bit more difficult, I suppose, for us to be able to measure it. And they have different goals, right? We're talking about goals of TOs and teams making money and being around and getting more viewers and everybody enjoying the experience more from a viewership standpoint, where theirs has nothing to do with the viewership standpoint, right? Theirs is to do with, hey, how do we just get more people playing our game that we like making?
And they're obviously doing a great job because they're I mean, Counter-Strike still,
the numbers
still
are really good.
Driving. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. But there was more to the update than just the map, right? There was
the
also
M4 and the L.
Yeah, and they're obviously not being used at Blast at the moment, which is fine. That's the normal decision that TOs make when an update comes out this close to an event.
I think it will be at Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. That's been publicly announced, I think, which is cool. I think that's cool. I know that there's a fair few players who are in uproar about it. Why don't you like about it, Yanko?
The problem is this is the problem. It's like you played the whole fucking year, right? Like, and now for this one last tournament, you're gonna change the pool, right? It's like, but it's a lose-lose situation. Like either you change the pool and then the teams that have played all year or even in your circuit have to practice this different map, or you keep it the old way, you keep Dust 2 in, but then all the other teams that are practicing, they're practicing Anubis and not Dust 2, so you can only kind of get Dust 2 in with the teams that are going to be there or whatnot. But
yeah, go on.
No, I just gonna say, like, it's kind of a rough spot, but I think it's your, like, kind of world finals, right? Like, it's the culmination of the whole year. If that's the case, and it's only 2 weeks away or whatever, I mean, you could have just kept Dust in the pool.
Yeah, but I like the way you framed it there as like a lose-lose, because I think that's exactly what it is for Blast. Is like you do have this whole year of playing on a previous patch that's building up to qualifying on the old patch, qualifying on different maps, qualifying on different guns. So, I mean, on that sense, for the continuity's sake, you don't really want to switch, but also, after this event, no teams and no teams are going to be practicing on the old map. There's probably not as many Dust 2 scrims. You're going to be practicing with the new M4 and the new AWP. And you're going to be preparing for next year. So, I mean, at the same time, I think in both, whatever decision they make, there's going to be pros and cons to it. So I don't think they can actually win. But I think I'd make the same decision as Blast, which is for Abu Dhabi, change the patch. Just because, you also have Paris coming up, and you want to start motivating teams to get their time on Anubis and their time on with the new patch and everything like that. So I think this is the only real decision. I think this is one of those areas where you'd look at Valve and you'd say, I wish we could have a little bit more coordination of when these more game-changing updates are going to come in. They, in theory, could have waited a month, but like to the end of the season.
But doesn't this just add more fuel to the fire, though, boys? That we need to put the majors at the end of the season. Like, isn't that what this does right here?
Hopefully that's gonna happen.
Like a lot of our problems of what we're talking about here are solved immediately if the major's at the end, and then as soon as the major ends, within like the first week or two after the major, this is where that communication we're talking about, I think, it could be imperative. It's like, okay, if we know after every major, or at least after the second major every year, because every major might be a bit excessive, that we're going to have that map change.
That's when the big boy
everybody
changes
knows
come
it's
in.
coming,
Yeah.
right? It comes in, you go for Christmas, right? Maybe you play it in the lead up to Christmas or whatever. Just depends on when that fucking major ends. But there shouldn't be any tournaments that actually matter. Like if your org wants to make you play a fucking gambling sponsor event MR12, right? Which we had a couple times. Then yeah, you fucking have to do that. Right, that's on you and your org and the contracts and everything that you guys have. But the season, as far as we're concerned, from a competitive standpoint towards the rankings, is fucking done. New map comes in, the new changes are into whatever they do, and that happens, and then we have like a 4-week fucking lead time over Christmas. So I know all of that isn't spent playing into the start of the next season. And then when we start the year with a group stage or with like an online league, it's not such a big deal because we know everyone's warming into the season. Right now, our peaks and our troughs are fucked. I know the three of us have talked to this for we're beating a dead horse at this point. But everything can just be more beneficial and make more sense for everyone. The viewer, the player. It'd be really, really good if we get that change. And as Yanko said, hopefully we get it.
Yeah, Chad, I just want to say I'm really looking forward to the World Final. Because that James is just like fucking been jerking off and playing Anubis. He's just been jerking off and nerding it out on Anubis, man.
Yeah, well, that's maybe he's happy he's not at the full final, mate. He gets a lot more time to practice for that world final.
Like, the blasting is like so weird. Like, I love the Royal Arena event. I think it's great, but it's like your like fall final is more hype than what's supposed to be the kind of closing thing, right, for the whole for the whole circuit. But I feel like it feels more like the world final is like the Masters tournament at the end of the tennis circuit, like it's not a Grand Slam, but it's this thing at the end that is kind of important. It's kind of like big, but it's also like that's the vibe I get from it.
Yeah, that's curious. I think like it does seem a little bit odd in the tournament scale, but I'm just gonna say this, right? Why not make the world final the Royal Arena event? They'd have to move the date,
and then the fall final, find a place like you have Lisbon, right? Like find a cool place where you can also hold an arena event and be successful. I think they could definitely pull it off, but.
That's what it is. I agree with you. Like, and I think it's a great time of year. Like, but they'd have to move from now, which is, maybe they wouldn't. They'd have to move their whole season. Maybe that's what they're doing, right? Yeah. Next year, they haven't announced it, but next year their group stage has to be before Katowice, right? There's no other real time in the calendar, so that means it has to be the first event as soon as we come back from the player break. So maybe everything's going to shift a little bit forward. I don't know. I agree, Yanko. If they made the World Finals to fucking Copenhagen, it'd then be like, wow, it's only 8 teams, but it'd then be like it'd be a big grandstand event, and everyone get fucking hyped for it, right? The best teams of the year meeting, but that system
It's
work?
so easy to build the storylines.
But the story's going to be gone if Valve do move the player break. Sorry, not the player break, the majors to the end of the seasons, because then that storyline won't exist for Blast anymore.
It's still fine. You just do it. It's the last event before the major. Like in November, December, whatever it is, right? Like, I mean, you have to end your circuit at some point. If the majors are then, like, that's just how it is.
Yeah, fair enough. It's gonna be curious how they restructure some stuff then, but I'm kind of with you, because like right now the winners of the majors in the year get invited, right? So if we did that, then it would have to be the winner of the last major of the previous year and the first major of this year to then go before the second major of that year, right? It just gets a little bit more convoluted. It's not really a huge deal. It just changes the order and everything. It's still data from over a very similar set period of time. Is it from both majors?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So yeah, there's those details there. I know I saw some tweets yesterday about the point system and how that has kind of somewhat secured OG a position at the World Finals. Is it 6 teams of the World Finals? Is it 8 teams of the World Finals?
I was
looking at it just a minute.
I think it's 8.
It's 8 teams. Yeah. So OG right now sitting in 6th position with 6,300 points, and the only other team that can get more points at the moment is Liquid. And if one of the teams who hasn't, if I'm reading this correctly, one of the teams who hasn't qualified already for the World Finals, and those teams are Na'Vi, Outsiders, FaZe, Vitality, G2, and Heroic. If one of those teams win the event, then the points will trickle down. So I think OG should almost 100% be going, right? Maybe not 100%. Never go 100%.
This is one thing I really hate about these kind of circuits that ESL's had and Blast has at the moment, is these point systems like are just so convoluted, and I feel like I never get like a clean image of what's happening.
Yeah,
like
if I'm
a fan following along, like I don't see like these point updates on the broadcast. I don't know. We talk about it on the show, and we're given like some details of saying this team needs, is almost on the verge, or this team can still make it, blah blah blah. But man, if this is the kind of system we're going to run, and I know ESL had the same complication when they were running more point-based system as well. Is just like it's so hard to follow that and keep track of that as a fan with all the Counter-Strike that goes on throughout the year. Like I wish a TO like Blast would be putting this points graphic in my face like every single day between every single game. Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. But even then, you only get it for 5 days, and you only get it like four or 5 times a year. So like and then with the way that it's affected by other tournaments, Blast don't have a way to come out and advertise the fact that IEM Katowice for Heroic got them 1,000 points, right? They can do it on their broadcast, but like ESL aren't going to do it for them during the ESL event. And then maybe Blast make a tweet, but it's not going to get to the same audience that you're looking for. Yeah. So in their contained events, these point systems just make it much harder for the broadcaster to communicate to the viewer of what the fuck's going on and why this team is qualified. And then you come in obviously we know you're stacking the deck, right? This OG situation is stacking the deck. That's the reason they do this. You get 2,400 points for topping an exhibition match group series where literally only partner teams are invited. Like they got 4,800 points out of their 6,300 points from topping an event that only partner teams can be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think isn't that the complaint? Who was it that was Snappy's always been the really vocal one from ENTS?
Yeah, he has been. Yeah. And there's been a couple of people as well. I don't know. Like,
again, I don't even criticize Blast for it though. I mean, again, that's.
Well, we just have to acknowledge it. People just have to understand that the deck is fucking stacked here. Like that. It's not fair, and it's not meant to be fair. I think that's the point.
No, but I think also if you want to make the argument from the Blast perspective as well, what are they supposed to do with the limited number of days they have available to them in the calendar? It's not like they have a complete freedom to change the format and to add more.
But they could just give less points for topping their own group stage, right? Like that is the most closed point of their entire circuit.
Yeah,
their groups. So wouldn't you just? I think if I took a look here, which is a team at the major that only made it to the fucking challenger stage, this is the G up right here, Jason. PGO Antwerp was Na'Vi versus FaZe in the final.
Yep.
Right. Do you know how many points Na'Vi got for being second place the Antwerp major?
2,000 it looks like.
Yeah, and for topping the group stage of only
Yeah, that's
invited
fair.
teams, 2,400 points for OG. So you come second place in a major and you get less points than topping a completely closed group stage.
Yeah, but that's the benefit of this being your product that you
Oh,
want to
yeah,
emphasize.
but-
Yeah, I mean,
No, I'm with you.
Yep.
But when you look at the numbers like that, if we stand back as a Counter-Strike viewer, right,
Yeah.
and not someone who's sympathizing with the product of Blast,
True.
that's not fair.
no.
Like, but it doesn't have to be fair because it's their business and they
Life
can do
is
whatever the
not
fuck they
fair,
want.
Chad.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like conflicted. I'm standing on both sides of the fucking fence right now.
I mean,
But
that's
it's-
the duality of life that we have to lead as people who get to hear the TO arguments and the TO struggles and end up having a certain level of sympathy for them because we're involved in this side of the industry.
Yeah, but it's like I just look at that and that my brain has a hard time getting past. It's like they don't equate. Like if I had those two things on a fucking scale, they're nowhere near equal, and the OG result is definitely not greater than. Right? The whole point of this is to weight teams based off of the merit, but that's not the case. It's to weight teams based off which events they've been permitted to play in, either by virtue of name or buying into something. Right?
No, I mean it's certainly a business decision, but it has to be. So I mean, again, it's hard. I understand entirely, and I agree from a Counter-Strike perspective. But I mean, this is just it has to be the way it is because you have to give value to your partner teams in some way, and this is one of the ways in which they do it within their system.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like because last year it was only 1,600 points for topping the group, I think. I was having a look at this before.
How the fuck do you even remember that?
know this, man?
Yeah,
Like,
what the fuck?
I don't think
Well-
even the teams know this shit.
But this is the like important details, right? Like
It's like
I
the
was-
big, the Big Short, and like they're talking about those like derivatives and what goes into the fucking thing, and it's like only the lawyers who build them know what goes in them. Like that's Chad. Like he reads through that shit. Like he gets all the fucking little details.
I was
I-
sat at
it's
the
just
bar
a-
last
yeah.
night, and Liquid came back after the victory, and we're walking by to the practice rooms, and they were just like, "Hey, do you know if we got enough points now to qualify?" Like they don't even it's hard to track even if you're the players in the teams.
And obviously you don't think about it until you get to this point where it's the end of the year, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, because you're either on holidays or you're playing another.
Well,
tournament,
you're
so
also
it's-
you're so focused on practice in the next tournament that you're not even really thinking about the point system until now, I guess.
That's the same with players, even in fucking like bracket formats.
Yeah.
I remember talking to some players and like, yeah, this form, and they're like, I don't really think about formats. I just play the game. It's like, what the fuck? Like you don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I don't think that's everybody.
I like that.
Regardless,
I actually like that though out of a player.
they're so focused on just headshotting.
Yeah, just play the fucking game. You don't worry about the format. That's a conversation for a different time.
That's my problem. I'm the type of guy who needs to know the fucking why.
Yeah.
I need to know the why. Why are we doing this?
It's one
what
of
are we
y-
here
It's
for?
one of your problems, Chad.
I've got many of them.
We all do.
I don't know how we got down there because we were talking about the changes, the AWP and the M4. We never even got into that.
We never even got into it. Let's talk about it now. How's your vibe on the op change? Again, I haven't played with the changes yet at all. Haven't played Anubis. Haven't played with the changes. What's the vibe so far, Chad?
So
Or
Harry, I don't really AWP, so it's not really something I'm using too much here. But I did see some conversation about it on the internet, like people saying, okay, like people will be counting shots now, or AWPers might have to play a little different because of the reload time and stuff like that, which I think will catch people out. And also, if you put yourself in a combat AWPing situation and you're going in without like full 5 bullets, you're probably fucked, right? Because in that situation, if you get combat AWPing
Yeah.
and you're going to need to maybe hit some no scopes, it's likely you're going to miss a shot or whatever. So you need to probably make sure you have all 5 before you go into those type of fights. But it definitely is a nerf to AWPers. Like there's no way to say it isn't, right? It's something which they can only fire 5 shots and now they have to reload. People put stats up, right, of like how many times in a game players would use all 10 shots. I think this removes like wall bangs or like wall spamming at least.
Or smoke spamming during an execute?
Yeah, like that'll be at a little bit more of a premium now when players are choosing to take those shots because they know that they can get run down. But a lot of this is just like theoretical, right? Like in terms of how this is actually going to play out in the server, I'm not sure. I don't know if we're going to see the effects immediately. I'm not sure what those effects are going to look like. I think a lot of this is all backed up by good information and good critical thinking, but I don't know. What do you think, Yanka? You're someone who likes the big green.
yeah, I think the operators just need to be a little bit more aware, probably on the T side. Like I could see them potentially having a problem where they're
Getting
taking
faded
the
for
site,
shots.
though they're taking the site with 3 bullets, right? And then in the
Okay.
post plan they only have 3 bullets left, and sometimes you need more than that. So I think it's just going to, and the problem is also the noise of reloading, right? So you have to be a little bit aware and think about when and where are you going to reload if you are, right? Like I think most of the time it's going to probably come down to you get a kill somewhere, just reload straight away, right? Like you're going to reposition anyway, move. I don't think it's going to be a massive deal in the end. And the M4, I don't know, like I saw the
Did you see that video, that compilation of like the different ranges?
Yeah.
Like they actually put the context into the
Yeah,
map.
I saw the screenshots on Reddit as well, right? And it seemed like, wow, that's really significant. And then
Yep.
Simple said in an interview, it's like, wow, it's the same, like, with the headshot and whatnot. But it even says like on some distance, like even if you get a headshot, like you need 2 more bullets,
Yeah,
right?
I
Like,
heard at a certain range, 99 and 2, like
Yeah.
it's possible a long range with the headshot,
But
right? So you will need a third bullet.
if that's super long range, then that's fine. I think we'll just see how the players use it. I think, as I said, on those screenshots, it looks like fucking a significant difference, right?
It's the fire rate as well that's definitely a difference now between the A4 and the A1S, right? Like I think it was I'm going in like there's like I don't know, it's a fucking wiki or whatever. I think it's like, is it 666 for the M4 and then 600 for the A1S? Regardless, these numbers I don't think are what like the developers use. So, but there's difference in the fire rate between two of them. Obviously, the amount of bullets. I've changed back to the A4, and like I'll get to the end of a spam that I think is 20 bullets, and if I can change to my pistol, I still have like 7 bullets left or something in my A4, and I'm like, okay, well I fucked up there, right? So there's a bit of that going on. I think that the thing is. And the broad conversation I want to have about this is because I've seen a lot of people saying bits and bobs about it, is the game is never meant to be perfectly balanced, right? Like the idea is to shift through metas. And well, at least that's how I view these changes, right? We had a Krieg and an Org meta. Valve changed the price and went, hey, these have been in the game the entire time. Take these. And you look at that meta, right? And you go, okay, well, what was the strength of that meta? Headshotting was the strength of that meta, right? Being confident, taking fights. These weapons were super, super strong. Well, now we're in the silenced M4 meta. Well, what's in this meta? Lots of smoke spamming, right? It does make things a little bit more difficult to watch. There's a lot more smoke spamming. You're using that rifle in a different way as you would with like an A4 or something like that. You can also get in more buys because it's cheaper than traditionally what the the M4A1 or the M4A4 have been worth in the past. So it's helping in the CT side economy to get more buys. Now you question, right, if it's balanced or maybe it's more 50-50, if you're an AWPer, maybe you keep the A1S because you know if you're in a tight game, you're not going to have as much money going, right? Maybe you can drop more A1Ss or maybe you can buy more A1Ss. Maybe, like, there's a lot of different factors here.
Chad,
if you're playing, yeah?
Players are just going to play with whatever they feel like they can kill more people with.
Yeah, do you think, though, do you not think we're getting to a point where everyone's a bit more, like, give it a bit more thought process? Because I know, like, in terms of the general Counter-Strike mindset, it's like, yeah, I hit better headshots with this. This is why I use this.
No,
You think that would have been the case?
I think you're right. I think people are putting a little bit more thought into it. But it's like, if a player feels better with the A1 than the A4, he's not, he's going to play with it.
Sure.
Right? Like, I think, though, you could make that argument for why didn't more people play with the A4 now, right? Prior to everyone was playing with the A1. But I think like it was just so much better that you couldn't really make an argument for the A4.
Yeah, well, like the price, I think, and it was just better. It was better overall. It was better at everything. Right? It had so many more perks.
Actually,
Yeah?
I don't. In my mind, I mean, I'm sure this isn't the same with players, but I don't even really think the price is the biggest factor in the world in today's Counter-Strike. Because now we're seeing teams willingly, like, if a team has like one of those like weird situations, like I just saw it yesterday with I think it was Heroic who did it, where they were in one of those weird situations where they could have like forced a buy with most people at like, I don't know, like 3,800, like right around that period. And what they did was like two players bought M4s and 3 of them bought upgraded pistols, and they lost the round. And then the next round was 3 players buying M4s, the ones who had pistols previously, and then the other 2 players dropping down to like SMGs and pistols. So I think players are now so comfortable with the fact that SMGs can be effective, 5.7s and Deagles are obviously super effective, that they're willing to drop into like 3 rifles and 2 pistols or 2 SMGs. So I don't necessarily think like the price of between the M4s itself is that big of a consideration, because players are already screwing with the economy, dropping down to even weaker weapons than that.
I think it matters because it's as simple as, instead of getting an M4 small armor and like a smoke, you can get an M4 small armor, smoke, 2 flashes, right? And I think
Yeah.
for some players and teams, like that's all the difference. That's enough for them to make the decision to buy instead of half buy. So
Yeah,
that actually,
there's
especially in
different.
like this scenario
depends
where
on
you
the
have
teams.
4400,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I agree. It depends on the teams, but like I think more teams play that safer route. But there's also I think that you're like I can think of a lot of examples where what Jason's talking about, teams are hedging a lot more and taking these type of buys and thinking, look, if we make the right call, the right position, we can get 2 kills here, and if we don't, we just save. Like you definitely so. But this is where it's the balance of. And maybe now the balance shifts back in a direction where the CTs aren't as empowered by, if they change, having that cheaper rifle. And then if more people have the A4, obviously we're just speculating. We have no idea how this is going to play out. But like, let's say that there's more A4, so teams are taking lighter purchases on their half buys or their saves, which then make it slightly easier on the Ts. And we've been talking about being in a very heavily sided CT meta at the moment, right? So when I'm talking about the broader scale, like the meta with these things being adjusted, maybe the overall game shifts by like 1 round in the direction for the Ts across maps, right? Maybe 2. I don't know. You don't know what these effects are going to be. I'm just speculating that could be one of the effects of what these changes put in place. And this is the thing. We could have the lengthiest of discussions about this M4 and how it's going to affect things and what's going to be different. Like smoke spams won't, if you have the A4, you won't be able to spam through smoke. So Ts might be able to cross behind their smoke walls a little bit easier because they can shoot back if it's against an A4, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Like we could go so deep on this. But that's the cool thing. These are the choices that players are actively having to make. And that's good. Like it's good that people have to make these choices. That's part of the game. Like the Counter-Strike is a game of all the different choices you make with
it
them.
feels
within
like
the mechanics,
we've always
right?
had like it was always either the A4 or the A1, right? Like
Yeah,
we've
that's
never
true.
really had a meta where people would actually just use one or the other, let's say dependent on which position they play or either role.
Do you think it's
True.
Do you think it's time to change the way the loadout works for CT side so that you can buy both the A4 and the A1 in the game? Like you don't have to select one or the other. You can just buy either one depending on.
Can I ask why you think that should be possible before I answer with my
I actually don't even know if I think that's the way it should be. I'm just opening up the conversation. Like I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I just think if I think I agree with Yanko that as much as they've tried to balance the weapon, we've never had a world where like 2 players are playing with the A4s and 3 are with the A1s. I know, like I remember Blade one time Blade came out at one point and said he thought that the A4 would be better for like the anchor players and the A1 would be better for like the rotating players and the supportive players at bomb sites. But I mean, that never actually worked out. That theory never actually played out in the server. I think that, Navi like switched very quickly to everyone on the A1 because it's just so strong.
Well, what about this? Because I'm looking back, right? I've just went back to the year I retired, so 2016. Because there was, and this is the problem, there was a shift with the M4s around this period, within a year of this, like earlier than or of the year of 2016. I forget when exactly. But there was a shift that made everybody go from the silencer to the A4. So this data here is over the course of the year. But the course of the year of 2016, the silencer was used 9.59%. This is with all weapons, right? This is HLTV stats page 2016. So let's say just 9.5%. And the A4 was used 12%. Right, out of all guns. So but regardless, we're comparing them both to the whole picture here. So you can see that those two were used in very similar fashion, but I can't remember if that was because the update came through. Because I remember we were on a plane to a DreamHack event. This is where we lost to fucking Easy Skins. We went on a plane to a DreamHack, and while we were on the plane, they updated the M4. So and that's back in the days when we didn't have prac rooms, right? This was like a DreamHack London event.
So you're just going in dry to a new update.
Exactly. Right. So I grew up in a different time, motherfuckers at home. There was no like beta clients and shit back then to roll shit back. So I think you just had to play on the most recent patch, right? So we had that issue. But regardless, that was a time where it seems like there was a bit more parity in the rifles, but I don't remember if it was at the same time or if it was out over different periods. I guess I could try and refine it, maybe not for now. But I'm with the sentiment here. The choice that we're talking about is more detailed, and Counter-Strike is more detailed now. Like the suggestion of, hey, like even we were looking at T-side players keeping the A1S, like if they were lurking, because they could get kills, they're not going to get identified as quickly. They could maybe get a second kill. Like, it depends on how good at lurking they are. You
and
know,
the CT side's not buying like head armor as much sometimes with the AK, so the M4 is still really strong on the T side as well.
yeah, like there's a lot of factors, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Now with the question, right, of the loadout, Valve, I would assume, have the technology to do that, right? If they wanted to, I assume they have the technology to make it possible. So then, wouldn't we assume at that point that if they're not doing it, there's a reason that they aren't doing it? Do people think the reason is they haven't heard this feedback?
I would assume that they still believe that they can balance the weapons well enough to make that a valuable decision in the loadout. I would imagine that's their goal, is to keep the loadout as much as possible, and they're still trying to attain that goal.
Yeah, but do we think that's a good goal? Because let's go with that assumption that you've just made there, that they're adding choice to different portions of the game. So before you even get into the server, with what you're putting out there, the choice has to be made of what M4 you are going to be using, right? So what positions am I going to be playing? What map am I going to be playing? You know, do I want to be able, like, whatever all the thought process we just went through on the A1 versus the A4, you have to make that choice before you get into the server. So is that a bad thing that players have to make that choice?
No, I actually don't think it is at all. And I think that's going to be part of the fun of this change. I think the A1 change is kind of interesting because we're going to see players experimenting with the M4. And, I mean, they're going to tell... I think Kerrigan's already switched to the M4. He was using the M4 the other day, I think.
I think the OG players were even using the A4 like during the major, right? So they're already a little bit more used to it. I think most of them were using the A1 when I was watching yesterday.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just going to be something that's play tested. I think probably. I mean, definitely over the break during practice and leading into 2023, but certainly leading into the World Final. And I guess we'll find out. I think it's kind of cool to see who's going to experiment with it and who's going to try it and who's going to find success. And then, I mean, if that starts catching on, if people start, handling business with the A4 again, I think you'll see more players switch over to it. But yeah, I guess that's what we're just going to find out. I think not to change the subject entirely, I think one cool nerf and change they could make to the A1 that I think could make it a little bit more balanced. Because a lot of the strength of that A1 is spamming through smokes and not having the trace. Like, what if you added a tracer to like every 4 bullets?
Yeah, Dinko said something similar.
Yeah.
So I assume the two of you have been cahoots here. But I think with that, someone was telling me that there is already, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know because when we're thinking about changing the weapons in certain ways, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. I've said my mother's saying incorrectly. It's not her saying.
I like that.
I want to make sure she doesn't have an ownership on the saying, people. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot of ways to change this. Damage fall off is giving you the choice of, hey, do I want to value the damage over range, right? Now you have to weigh up more. There's more choices now between the rifles. I think, in terms of the detail. Yeah.
Just looking at these screenshots of like the different angles that are now, like, it takes 1 extra bullet with the A1 to actually get a kill without a headshot. Like the 5 bullet kills into the chest. Like, just looking at how close the distance is, I think there's going to be a lot of people interested in changing to the A4 and really experiment with it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, for context, for those listening who might not have seen the screenshots, it's like, on Mirage, it's like top con to catwalk. It's jungle to top con as well as a distance. On Inferno, it's like the wrap side corner to mid. Like, it's not that far. Like, the drop off, I think, is going to be strong enough to where the A4 is really an interesting prospect for a lot of players.
Mm. Yeah, well, what do we think though? Like, do we think this will have a flow-on effect to the meta overall? Like, do we think that we could shift into a place where the T's, does the AWP change help the T's more? Does it hinder the T's more? Like, what do we think that this is going to have a broader change? Or maybe we need to talk about it. Maybe we can just wait and see what happens. I'm just curious. It's always fun to see what happens. Like, is Anubis going to be a T-sided map? Who the fuck knows?
So, Jason.
Yes, sir.
How did Liquid beat Navi?
How did Liquid beat Navi? Well, fucking Nitro had an absolute banger of a fucking series, didn't he?
On Inferno, he had
31
kills, right?
31-19.
First time since early 2019, I believe it was. Obviously, had a year in Valorant or so. Yeah, I didn't actually watch that game super closely. I was eating dinner with a friend. Just kind of had it playing on the side. So strategically, I couldn't really give you a great answer, but. I think, I mean, they had everyone played solid. I think Nitro obviously had his great games. Third map was a complete stomp. They had some good comebacks as well, but I mean, Yakinder had some, obviously, as we know. Alish had a good game. Naf played. Everyone played solid, and then just like the step up from Nitro was massive.
You think G2 can beat Heroic today?
That's when I saw that. Like my fantasy team.
I haven't.
Has two
I
G2
was so
players, two
fucked.
heroic
Like
players.
I didn't see any of the games pretty much. I
think-
haven't seen any of the G2 games either.
I think it really depends on the map. I really like the way Heroic is playing on maps like Ancient and Overpass right now. I think Heroic has gotten very, very good at that like outsider style of play where you can spread the defense like really far across the map and open up some gaps to push forward and take control and get a lurker in a good position to activate, and you kind of work the defense back and forth to pull them into your lurkers. And I don't think G2 will be able to handle that style if the map veto lends itself to like the Ancients and the Overpasses.
It's. I think like they don't have far to go on the map pool. G2 it doesn't feel like.
No, it doesn't.
There's no Dust 2 for them in that series, which means they're going to have to lean on something else. Heroic are happy to play like a Vertigo or an Ancient, as you mentioned. Like Heroic have
Yeah,
been
Vertigo's another map where you
Ancient.
can pull the defense apart as well.
Yeah, I think G2 are fucked.
I do too, but I hope for the best.
I do as well. It's just so sad, man.
Well, I'll tell you this though: if G2 beat Heroic, they're gonna beat Liquid as well and be in the final.
Did you see that Nico quote was fucking sick?
Yeah.
I love that shit. I like it.
I think it was a great quote.
I
like his hair as well.
I don't necessarily believe it, but I like that he said it. I like that he put
Say
it out there
for
to the
the
world.
listeners, Jason.
Yeah, the quote was something like, I mean, because it was Yakinder in the post game interview was like, yeah, we didn't really know what to expect from G2, and when we started playing the game, we realized that they haven't really changed anything. It felt like we were playing the old G2. And Nico was asked about it in an interview after they beat Fluxo yesterday, and he just said, "Yeah, well, if we played them today, I think we'd 2-0 them." Like he just went like right back at it. And he
Yeah,
was
today
kinda
or tomorrow. Yeah.
yeah, he was like, "Fuck
Like
that guy."
on that
we'll
day we
2-0
were
next time."
shit. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's a sentiment that a lot of people, when they hear, they have a really hard time, like coming to terms with, right? Like it's like, oh, like, and it probably feels like I'm being a bit of a G2 sympathizer here. I'm just talking teams in general, like broad teams. Like that's why teams don't like playing 2 matches in one day, because you can just have a day where everything is just fucking funky. And I know that that's like, this is what high level competition is about. You're meant to be able to wake up every day of the week and perform, but that doesn't always happen, right? Not everybody is able to do that. Not everybody, like we saw with FaZe of the Major, right? So this sometimes happens. It's people have off days. Teams can have off days. Is it acceptable? When you're a high level team and stuff? No, probably not. But I think it's like expected. Everybody in every walk of life has an off day where they're not feeling their mojo as much, right?
You really like Nico's hair?
Yeah, I think why not? Like he's what's wrong with it? He just dyed his hair.
The
It's all
color.
good.
No, man, it's not a good look.
Okay.
It's so aggressive.
It's
I don't mind it.
Nico's a good looking cat. I don't know why he felt the need to dye the hair in that fashion. It's very aggressive.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of interesting hair choices. You notice Twist had pink hair at the major. They go out 0-3. He changes his hair color, and they come here into Blast, and he just dominates. So never go back to pink hair if you're Twist. That's obviously the
enough.
issue.
Is FaZe back?
Yeah. I don't think
Do
they
you
were.
think-
I don't
do you
think they were
think they're
really.
back?
I don't really think they were gone. Like as you said, like that was a really bad event for them, and I think there was a massive overreaction, as there always is from the community. I picked FaZe coming into this event before the games even
They
started.
did lose to Bad News Eagles.
I was telling all the talent here that FaZe is going to win this event. I think this is good. This is like one of
okay.
those bounce back vengeance runs from FaZe, and they look really, really strong right now.
They're all mauling. Like this is the thing. The residual of what they worked on for the major still exists. Like all that practice, all that work they did on it, and we're only in 10 days removed from the major or something like that.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
So they prepared to win the major, and that's why like Vertigo came out and everything like that, and they would have been practicing really hard. They'd done that boot camp, so all of the benefits of that are still going to be here. Like I guess when I asked the question, like, are they back? I think my initial sentiment was kind of like Jason's. Like it sucks that they didn't do well at the major because it would have been great for a lot of reasons. But it never felt like they'd completely dropped off and they were done. But there is a conversation that lingers around like Carrigan teams, and do they just like eventually like fall off a cliff? So this would be good if they could find like another push late into the year if they win here and they win at Blast. But I keep going broader narrative. I think the detail here is everybody's playing well. Like everybody, like they fucking mauled OG. It was 16-3, 16-6.
We got early year Brokey in action the other day as well. He had some really, really sick highlights. Twist has had some incredible games. Rain has been solid. Rops has been solid, delivering in the clutch moments. Kerrigan's calling has been really good. So, Yeah.
All
Wow.
positive after fucking 4 maps.
I know-
Everybody's positive.
It looks sad for fucking Navi FaZe semi.
Yeah, that's going to be a
Yeah.
fun semi as well. Although Navi,
Yeah.
Navi still doesn't have that same aura around them that they had toward. Like they haven't gotten back, I don't think, to
Put the
their peak in any
nipple
way.
in.
Yeah, put the nipple in.
That's a curious one as well that they're moving back to that. And Simple said some things in interviews, and we know that they're like we knew that SDY was only going to be with or guaranteed to be with Navi up until the major, but it's a quick turnaround into the next couple of events. So it makes sense that they have him there. It would be hard to train with somebody else in that time, and these are events that you want to do well at. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard right now for Navi. It's been a fucked year.
Yeah, it has been. I think they're exhausted. I think they're burnt out a little bit. But yeah, they don't have
Feel
that
them.
same dominant. Yeah, exactly.
What about
Me too.
Perfecto's haircut? I like his haircut.
Yeah, he's done great with his haircut. He's playing really well this event also. I think he's in some ways been one of the most impressive players. I mean, obviously Simple's always going to be up there, but I think Perfecto, from what I've watched with Navi, he's been a player that's really delivered high impact during some stretches where they needed someone to deliver something special, and he's had some like critical entry kills, critical clutches, critical frags at certain moments in the round. So I think Perfecto's playing really, really well right now.
Yeah. Hit me with it.
No, I was going to go back to FaZe really quick. So if you have
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
I talked to Twist the other day for Media Day for some Blast content, and just to touch on a point that you were bringing up earlier, one of the things that he mentioned straight up was he was like, before the major, we actually had, he said it was probably one of the best boot camps of any team he's ever been part
Yeah.
of, and it felt super productive, which is one of the reasons why the losses were so shocking. But he even mentioned, obviously the loss of the major hurts and it sucks, and I'm not trying to minimize it, but he was like, I'd almost in some sense rather have had this amazing boot camp and bomb out at the major, but know that the boot camp set us up for greater long-term success.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, he was really a glass half full kind of guy in that moment.
He's such a mature lad, isn't he? It always blows me away talking to Russell. Like he's got
Yeah.
his head on his shoulders. He's a good lad. I think that's a really nice way to frame it. And obviously these teams have people in place to help them frame it that way. I don't know if FaZe doesn't, right? Yanko? They've only got
No,
like,
FaZe is FaZe gives that team like no real assistant outside of the salaries.
You get the logo.
Well, I mean, they have their analyst and I don't know what else.
Yeah, I guess they just leave them up to their own devices, and they seem to be getting it done. This was something that I wanted to. We can still.
Oh, they're
stay
lucky they
on-
got Kerrigan.
That's true. We can still stay on point here with around the blast stuff, but I wanted to kind of, because I said that I spoke to Mr. Gunderson on the plane before, right? And NIP are one of the teams at this event.
Not
and they
for much
play
longer.
against it. Yeah, probably not. But this is something that I'm curious with, because we've had all this like franchise talk throughout, right? And the big names in the franchise leagues who have been established for some time are differently trying a new model of approach, right? They have the academy teams. They're trying to promote people up, bring them down. Navi, Yanko, you mentioned it before. Mr. Nipple, who I believe will now formally be known as NPL. Is that the case, Jason? You're the little man on the side with that one.
Yeah, we were told, and I got this from another member of Talent, so it's kind of unofficial, but I trust
Okay.
it. I trust it considering I got it from Banks, who's close to
Okay.
the Navi guys. Yeah, apparently the nipple phrase in Russian means something entirely different than what it obviously
Okay.
does in English. So they just said they want to change it so the casters just say NPL. But I mean,
Easy.
look, it's really hard to stay away from nipple references. It's not easy.
No, they'll still be there, right? There'll be a couple of nip slips here, there, and everywhere, but I think for sure that'll help it. A bit more of a serious nature to it for the kid as well. 17 years young. But anyway, the framework that a lot of these partner franchised, bigger orgs who do multiple games, Navi, NIP, Astralis, Vitality, those are some of the names that was tip of my tongue in terms of being in those leagues and experimenting with 6-man rosters or academy teams. They're obviously trying a different pathway, right, to get where they want to be. They don't have the ability to pivot as much. Whereas what we're talking about with FaZe, I know spending money is their biggest, like, one of the things which if they do, they can get whatever they want, right? And they in theory have the money, but they don't have all the structure and stuff. So they're not playing by the same rules as what these other orgs are, where people like Jonas have more input on how the players are going and where the players are going. The teams the players in those teams feel like they're there to play for the organization, right? Like whether they get along or not, like obviously there has to be some degree of that. The team can't be completely fucking dysfunctional, but like they get that this is a bit more like a job framing as opposed to like a team framing, right? You don't get as much choice in where you end up, how you end up there. And I one of the things that I always frame it from before when I talk about these teams and making the changes and bringing in like LNZ or ZTR and stuff is like, why the fuck are they not getting in, better Swedish players? Why are they not buying these guys?
There are none.
Yeah, well, that's one factor, and the other is just like the expenditure of money. Because I look at like an ESL or a Blast, and I go, okay, I understand that they just can't keep spending and spending and spending, and that's why we see degradation in certain levels of product or this, that, and the other. But for teams, I never frame it from the same way. I'm like, well, why don't they just fucking get this guy? Why don't they just do that? Like, it's not easy to do that. And when you have an academy system and maybe you want it to become something, it makes sense that you want to promote those things. But for us in the short term, of fans of these legacy organizations, it looks bad, but they're playing a longer game right now by their nature of being franchised and partner teams in my mind. I keep saying franchise, it's just partner.
I think my thoughts on the academy.
Am I being too nice?
No. I think you're
Okay.
fine. I think you're right, but I think the conversation goes a little bit deeper in my mind.
Wrong.
Okay.
Okay, take it. You go first, then, Yanko.
What did you say, Chad?
I'm talking.
I think you're wrong, but I don't
remember
remember what you fucking said.
just because Jason said you're
Feels
right.
like Twitter.
Jason, are the games in the arena today?
No. The quarterfinals are we're in the arena, but the player setups are like in the concourses, and they move to the stage in the crowd tomorrow.
So there's no fans.
No fans today.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
not unusual. Blast has always done that as well. Sometimes I think that in the old days they did like a smaller crowd on Fridays. They almost used Friday the quarterfinals as like a stress test for the stage setup.
Yeah, it's like a soft open.
Yep. Which is cool. I
Yeah,
think that's actually really smart.
But that's because they cram it into 2 days before,
I
right?
think
They
you're
do
really
the-
smart, Jason.
End of the year Yanko
I'm
is the
sorry,
best
I'm
Yanko.
really tired.
It's all good.
No. The jet lag's what's the time in New York right now? Let me look.
He's back.
I'm in-
He's back in
I'm
Belgrade,
in
but he's
Serbia.
probably absolutely.
I know, but that's why he's
Oh,
jet
it's
lagged, right?
6:30 in the morning.
There you go. He's fading. The lights are slipping up.
Yes.
This is when he was going to bed in New York, so you know. But the academy discussion I think is cool because I think the academy system is a really smart way to do it. However, I think having an academy team for the sake of an academy team is really half-assing it. I think to do it properly, you really need to have a really strong coaching staff, analyst staff, and like a GM, because the entire point of the academy team, in my mind, is to have a proper system set up for your professional team and have a version of that system also being taught to the academy team so that you can make that transition a little bit more seamlessly, right? If the academy team is playing a completely different style and philosophy than the professional team, then you're going to have that steeper learning curve. So I think to do it properly, which I'm assuming there are some teams that are and some teams that probably aren't, you need to have like a good cohesive philosophy that the pro coach and the academy coach are both preaching, so that when you want to make that change or move up an academy player, they're stepping in already with a certain base of knowledge and philosophy of how the tier 1 team wants to play, right? And I think one of the few coaches we have that can institute that system is someone like Blade, who emphasizes a system over individual players. And I think that's also part of the reason why they were able to change into Electronic as an in-game leader so seamlessly, and bring SDY in and still remain competitive. And I don't know if enough organizations would probably emphasize having that level of continuity between coaching staffs. I know that's at the heart of what EG's trying to do as well with their
Yep.
3 teams. Whether they're having success with it or not is a different conversation, but that's kind of the idea that they're having as well.
Well, that's kind of my point, right? Is like they're playing a longer game right now, right? The success for them with these models, and they're all slightly different, NIP, Astralis, whatever, some of the moves look fucking crazy from the outside, and it's hard to understand. But the moves that they're like making a move right now. Maybe it won't be the best move tomorrow, but it might become a very good move in a couple years from now, right? And that's the factor that we don't really understand where these guys are headed. And I think that's the thing as well. They don't really understand where they're headed. What they're doing is an experiment on behalf of us, right? That's the same thing with these partnered leagues. They're kind of an experiment. We've moved away from the franchise situation. Valve have gone, okay, well, you guys tried to have like this arms race between PEA and ESL at one point. Well, we de-escalated that. But now Blast and ESL, you guys are sticking around. You still want to try something. You can be a little bit more exclusive in the way that you approach things, or a little bit more partnered. But, we're not going to get in the way of that, so you can attempt. And then within these franchise leagues, you have these teams who are bought into that. So these teams have gone, as we mentioned earlier, yeah, we'd like to be a part of that. Which then if I'm Valve and I'm looking at them, I'm going, well, the fucking orgs and the TO want to be in bed together doing this. So I guess maybe we just let them, and we make sure we keep an open format in everything else that we have our hands on. And then we step into this picture where now these teams are going, okay, well, let's do academy teams. Let's promote players up so we don't have to pay so much in buyouts to buy players from here, there, and everywhere. Like, We're
I think
streamlining the next generation of talent to stay good, because isn't that what they're trying to do? They want to stay good. Like if a team that's in a partnered league should want to stay good. You need to keep the relevance there, and if you're bad, you're bad. Like it's going to show.
What the fuck? Doesn't every team want to be good?
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. That's why when I'm looking at all these moves and stuff, right, and I'm seeing them, and some of them do get really harsh critique, right? It's like, okay, but maybe we don't understand why this decision is happening, or how this decision is happening, or what the hurdles are in the way of this decision, right? Like, why would these companies they might make what's the word, like oversights, right? Maybe they don't understand.
They don't do their due diligence.
Yeah, maybe there's something there that's an issue, right? That could definitely be the conversation point. But inherently, what they're trying to do is a positive, right? And maybe we just don't understand that positive. Or am I living in a fucking different world right now?
I think you kind of breeze past, I think, one of probably the biggest benefits of the academy system thing, which is the financial side of it, where instead of having to worry about if you want to make an upgrade at a position, you know, you don't no longer have to like go out and think about, okay, how much, like, a $250,000 buyout to get this kind of established player.
You can just promote ZTR to the main roster after you spend $1 million for device.
Yeah, well, that whole device situation is obviously
1 hour and 50 minutes.
less than ideal. You want to go to bed, Yanko?
Yes.
Okay, well, maybe we can turn it off, let Yanko go to bed. He's fading every minute. Jason, you got to get ready to go in anyway, don't you, mate?
Yeah, I do. But we haven't even really touched on the playoffs at all. Do we want to do like 15? Yanko, you have like 10, 15 minutes in you?
Yeah, man, for sure.
There you go.
Perfect.
Look, he found a bit of energy in the voice.
He's still on the grind.
But the playoffs for this event?
Yeah,
for
for
these
fall
games?
finals. Yep.
Yeah.
The quarterfinal. Like, let's just pull up the bracket and talk through the
Problem
games.
is, like, I haven't watched like these teams fucking play, but you know.
You watched
and
it.
I-
Okay, so look.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't watch G2, did I?
True.
Well, the synopsis for G2 in that first game against like Liquid, right? I'm going to be completely honest with you. Justin was fucking miserable on Vertigo, right? He was. I think he was like 0-7 or something like that, right? He had a really rough go of things before he got activated. They were doing good at, like, when they swapped over on the CT side, it looked like they had an opportunity to start bringing... they started on the CT side. They started the half pretty well. Like, I think Nico was doing a good job at finding some opening picks towards the ramp, but then they'd give a kill back over. They'd heavily rotate over towards A. It would leave, like, mid and B susceptible. Liquid would literally just walk back towards B and execute on JKS, who was playing passive. So he loses the site, and then when he tries to fight into the execute, he's getting double mollied and shit, and he dies. The teammates have to run through smokes to try and help him.
Yeah, we know, Chad, it's not his fault.
No,
okay.
I'm thinking in that situation it was
okay.
his fault. He should have been more aggressive to take that space.
No.
They were just doing the same shit.
No, they didn't help him. I feel like this.
Yeah.
I think this is like the G2 Navi game from Pro League. Like, this is where G2 is gonna play their like really good CS.
Okay.
Today,
well, because they're
gonna decide. They're gonna decide to be good today. They're gonna ruin the event for Blast by knocking out Heroic before the arena.
Ooh.
But
okay,
we'll get the Nico versus Ykinder thing again.
Well, that'd be fun.
That would be fun. That would be great if that G2 Liquid matchup comes. Like, that would be such a cool fucking story with that Nico quote as well. We'd have to hammer that really hard on the broadcast.
Yeah, that's a fun one right there.
I think Heroic handles G2. Unfortunately, I actually, and so on some level, I really like watching Heroic right now. I think Heroic plays really cool Counter-Strike and really fun players to watch and a really fun style to watch. I think they play like a more exciting Outsiders. In my mind, when I watch them play.
You mean the team they lost to in the grand final?
Yeah, exactly. They got a lesson. They got front row seats to the lecture in that grand final.
More exciting Outsiders. Okay. I'm listening.
Can you be any more excited?
Well, they don't do like the hardcore percentages and saves, right? But they play that similar style where you want to get like your lurkers. You got Diaby working on one side, you got Tess's working on the other side, and you got the other three working the middle of the map and trying to find some gaps that can pull some rotations and give the other teammates their 1v1s and give them a timing to where they can make their play on the extremities, which I think is cool and a lot of fun. But yeah, I think Heroic right now is just too strong for G2. I don't think G2 is cohesive enough as a team to handle that. And that's what I kind of mentioned earlier, where I think depending on the map pool, I just don't think G2 is going to have a chance.
Yeah, the map pool, I think they're fucked.
Like Overpass, Ancient, Vertigo, I think Heroic just works G2.
And unless G2 can get a win on Ancient, right, like, or Vertigo, I feel that they're going to have to win on one of the two to make this possible. Yeah. So I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be hard for them. But maybe you're right. Like the thing is, like Nico, this was against Fluxo, but he went back to fucking aimbot mode. Just fucking one tapping everybody, wrecking people. I don't know.
Look,
if they don't make it, they already did. They qualified for the World Finals. So I'm gonna say if they don't qualify for the World Finals, then I don't know where this roster is after the break.
If G2
Yeah.
if G2 wins this game or goes deep in this tournament, I think it's not going to be based off some great team escalation. It's going to be individual heroics. It's going to be like Nico or like Modesty or like Hunter having some kind of crazy resurgent game, which I feel bad because I really like Hunter and I feel like he's just been more quiet than I'm used to out of him. But it's going to have to be. I mean, it's the fun part of Counter-Strike and of a team like G2 where I think Heroic has all the win conditions in their favor, but like the X factor is always someone like Nico just popping off and having one of his games, or someone like Modesty.
He did in Stockholm.
Yeah, exactly.
When they played in the semifinal, Heroic should have won that game, but Nico just said no.
And that's
what has to happen, right? I'm excited to see Nico in the new patch eventually, because if AWPers are nerfed, that's an opportunity for like a rifler to I don't know. I'm getting too far ahead of myself.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Back to the brackets. Okay.
NIP Navi is the other quarterfinal today.
I feel like Navi has to win that game. I don't see how they lose to NIP.
No.
Well, they can lose to NIP, I guess, but they shouldn't lose to NIP.
Res versus Simple.
Yeah, they just don't look. They don't look like they've got their shit together, right? Their win was against OG. It was 22-19 and a 16-10 on Ancient and Vertigo. So at least they're playing the fucking fun maps. I respect that. They won't be able to play Vertigo against Navi for them, which is probably a concern because that was the map that they picked against OG. Hampus is still doing Hampus things. I don't know. It's the same thing for G2, but NIP have seen even less of, and they were looking very frustrated when they were losing their match to Heroic. But they did take a map off of Heroic. They
got stomped on the other two.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So now we face G2 Liquid.
And then what? A Liquid
Heroic.
I don't know, man. Final?
I think it's either going to be.
It can't be Liquid Heroic final. Liquid or Heroic in the final.
Yeah. I think FaZe wins this event. I think FaZe would beat Navi. I don't know if Navi is quite at that same peak or back to their peak enough to beat FaZe, with especially the way FaZe is playing. Unless there's some like weird cooldown during this day off for FaZe, I think they should be in the grand final. Not easy. I think that's still going to be a really fun game to watch. But definitely I think Liquid Heroic would be really, really fun. I think Liquid beats G2 again. I think Liquid Heroic is going to be a big challenge.
I'm interested to see. I would like a Heroic versus a Navi or a FaZe final, right? Because we just had outsiders, right? And I think I'd like to see where Heroic are at against those teams in the pressure of a grand final stage against two teams who have won on grand final stages before.
And
right?
I think that was one of the big questions that Heroic didn't get to answer in Rio as well, is can you beat like the kind of the teams that we consider to be elite, just due to the fact that FaZe had a bad event and got knocked out, due to the fact that Navi didn't make it past Furia. Like Heroic didn't have to go up against those teams. And I think to Heroic's benefit, the one thing that kind of assuages those concerns is the fact that they did beat Furia in that arena with that crowd. Like that, I don't care what anyone says about the crowd. Heroic actually winning that game was so fucking impressive.
Fucking shill.
Yeah, I know. But like that, dude, that's a hostile crowd to win a big game in. That is a very tough situation.
I was thinking about it. Like, I do hate it. Like when we on the broadcast like suck our own dicks. Like, this event is amazing, and the crowd, and like, I feel like I've done that probably.
We probably harped on it too hard.
Too much, but I do remember in the playoffs in the arena, like I wasn't like selling that. Like that was how I felt. Like, you know, when I have to fucking press my headphones to my ears so I could hear Trace talking live during the segment, or so I can hear the producer, like that's fucking loud. And then you also heard it from the players. Like the players said themselves, you heard it from Simple say after the loss that kind of felt that, you know, the crowd, like that's what we talked about on the desk. It's like the crowd doesn't matter when it's like 5-5 or whatever. But let's say you had an 11-4 half, and then Furious coming back in the second half, and the crowd is like cheering them on. That's when you get in trouble. Like the crowd just really magnifies the feeling that you have when you're giving up a lead. Like you have that feeling, you know, in a fucking studio, wherever you play, it's a sucky thing to have happen to you when you had this big lead and it's suddenly going away. But when you have on top of that 15,000 people screaming and drums and chanting and what, then it's going to be even worse.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think we probably harped on the crowd a little bit too much, but I think
Especially you fucking casters.
yeah, we probably did. I think you're probably right. But also, I mean,
Did we?
I think I feel like
You didn't,
I might
Chad.
have,
You hated everyone.
but also like I think like Yeko said, like it was all the players were talking about when they were there. It was a crowd during a challenger stage, which we've never had before, and it was a crazy wild crowd that was there from like 9 a.m. going 100% for the entire day. And if you think about the crowd being in the challenger stage as well, that's a big talking point for pretty much every team that's in the challenger stage because they're not experienced in that scenario. So it is kind of part of the story of will the young players be able to handle it? You know, players who are used to playing in a hotel ballroom or in front of, 100 people. Like that is kind of a big talking point, but I can understand as a viewer how that would be like, can we stop bringing up the fucking crowd now? I get it.
It was alright. I just think it was unnecessary when you said I love you goalless. Like that was too much.
Wait, did you say
That's
that,
it.
Jason? Did you
course
say you
not.
love goalless?
Of course I didn't fucking say that.
Wow, Jason.
I had
come on now,
I had
mate.
so many issues with Gallus during that event. Like not personally. I've never actually talked with him.
Oh, here we go.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
That's
we're
the
not-
headline now.
This is the next episode. If you want to
Jackson
get
on
into
the
it,
case.
Yanko's gonna pass out if I go down this road. But I had plenty of grievances with the
I
way
think I
that
passed out
Gallus
10 minutes
carried
ago.
himself throughout this event.
Oh my god. Well, I'm excited for that on the next episode. We can leave it on
something
that
to look forward
cliffhanger.
to. Yeah, we can.
All right. Well, yeah. I guess when you get home from the States and Yanko's had some sleep, we can talk about that situation. I'm excited.
Yeah,
don't know where that's
I got
going.
2 weeks before I fly off to Abu Dhabi when I get home. So we've got plenty of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Yanko, go get some sleep.
Yes, please.
But
I'm gonna go-
upload your audio
yeah.
before you pass out, Yanko.
Yeah, I
so
will. I will.
All right, my
I'll
man.
try and get this up before the games go live.
Yeah, upload. You upload yours too. I'll edit. You compile it. Throw it up on the shit.
The quicker I can do this, the quicker I can get back in DayZ and hide in Vorkuta and kill fresh spawns.
My man.
All right, I'm stopping recording in 3, 2,
2,
1,
1.
done.